Chapter 1947. Lin Tian had a strange expression on his face. His daughter's words made him confused. What did she mean? It's like this. God King of Destruction and God King of Darkness couldn't beat you in the modern era, so… The Five Elements crocodile opened its mouth and briefly explained what happened. Lin Tian was immediately moved. When he was in seclusion to break through to the Divine Emperor realm, God King of Destruction and the others did not hesitate to take such a risk and enter the forbidden area. They ran to the past to kill him before he had grown up. How audacious! After that, he was shocked by another matter as he stared unblinkingly at Lin Ruoxian. Wasn't this daughter of his too demon level? She actually controlled time. It was said that no one had ever been able to control this eternal divine Tao before. How is it, Daddy? Am I very powerful? Ruoxian Lin spoke again. She hugged Lin Tian's arm to show off. She continued, Actually, those old fools are very strong. Ordinary divine kings with king physique are no match for them. However, they jumped into the river of time. That is my main battlefield. Even if I am only in the early stage of the divine king physique, even if they are stronger than some divine kings with king physique, they still can't beat me there. Moreover, I'd borrowed that divine sword from my father in the past. Even if there were thousands of them, I would still destroy them all. She had inherited Wu Yi's peerless talent, and could be said to be born for cultivation. At the same time, she had also inherited Wu Yi's peerless beauty. Other than Wu Yi, no one could compare to her in terms of looks. However, her personality was completely different from Wu Yi's. At this time, she was hugging Lin Tian's arm and talking about the battle with God of Destruction and the others in the past. She was very domineering. Lin Tian was originally very surprised, but when he heard his precious daughter talk about going back to the past to fight with the God King of Destruction and the other seven, and saw her playful and domineering attitude, he could not help but feel like laughing. Amazing, my daughter is the best! He laughed. Then, he looked at Yenya and sincerely thanked her. This time, if Yenya had not deduced the whereabouts of the godly King of Destruction and the others, he would have been finished. If his past self was killed, his present self would have disappeared as well. This was because the past had too much of an influence on the present and future. At the same time, if he disappeared and died, Ruoxian would also suffer and disappear into thin air. It could be said that this time, Yenya had saved their family. This kindness was too great, and it was almost impossible to repay. At the same time, he finally understood why Wu Yi, Jiyu, and the others were waiting outside the immortal Emperor Divine Pagoda where he was in seclusion. It turned out that such a major event had happened while he was in seclusion. And this, naturally, made him feel very warm. Let's have a meal together later, he said with a smile. With their current cultivation, they did not need to eat or drink. Their bodies automatically absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to maintain their eternal lives. However, he still said this because his first homeland was Earth. According to the customs of his first homeland, if there was something worth celebrating, it would be a gathering of family and friends for a meal. On this day, in a small courtyard deep in the immortal court, many dishes were placed on the spiritual wood table. They were all personally cooked by him. He did not instruct anyone else in the immortal court. When he grew up in his first homeland, his culinary skills were considered very good. "Oh right, father, I went back to the past and saw Grand Master and Grand Tutor's wife." Ruoxian leaned against Lin Tian. When Lin Tian's master, an old drunkard, was mentioned, her big eyes were full of admiration. "I heard Auntie and the other ladies mention Grandmaster before. They said that he was very powerful. This time, I was lucky to see Grandmaster fight for father. He killed a few ancient emperors. He was really powerful. Too powerful. He really had the aura of invincibility." As she spoke, she shrunk her neck and continued. "Moreover, the most important thing is that Grand Master's divine instinct is too exaggerated. It's simply not like a human's. This time, when I returned to the past, under the situation where I didn't have a surface identity, when Grand Master first saw me, he seemed to have discovered that I wasn't from that era. You must know that when I went back to that era, Grand Master's cultivation was only at the Emperor realm, but I was at the Divine King realm. Moreover, I also controlled the laws of time and had the protection of the Divine King realm's laws of time. However, under those circumstances, I could not hide from Grand Master. However, Grand Master did not point it out at that time. I guess he must have noticed that I had no ill intentions towards Father at that time, so I would not be a threat to Father's safety if I stayed by Father's side. After speaking, she took a small sip of tea. Originally, there was wine here. However, Wu Yi did not allow her to drink. Hearing her say this, Lin Tian could not help but be moved. Ruo Xian went back to the past and saw an old drunkard fight. An old drunkard from the past could tell that she was not from that era? This was a little too exaggerated. In the past era, the difference in cultivation was so great. You even had the protection of the laws of time. How could he tell? Wishing Crocodile widened its eyes. Although it always knew that Lin Tian's master was very abnormal and terrifyingly strong, it still couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when it heard Lin Ruoxian say such a thing. This was simply abnormal beyond its imagination. Lin Tian was shocked for a while. Then, she suddenly thought of another matter. Looking at her precious daughter sitting next to her, she said strangely, "From the moment I stepped on the path of cultivation until now, I remember clearly how many times your Grand Master fought for me. It seems that you have never been by his side? What's going on?" The past could affect the present world. Ruoxian went back to the past and protected him when he was still very weak, sniping the god of destruction and the others. Then, he must have experienced such things back then. When he was still very weak, he saw Ruoxian. But why did he have no memory of this at all? Because Father dotes on me very much. Lin Ruoxian hugged his arm, smiling very sweetly and obediently as she said, "When your daughter fought with those old fools in the past era, your daughter had assumed her identity to my father back then. After the battle ended, my father at that time considered the causality of time in different eras. In order not to affect your daughter's safety, he said that he would erase all memories of seeing your daughter back then from his sea of consciousness. Your daughter believes that after your daughter left that era, my father erased all memories of seeing your daughter back then from his sea of consciousness." As she spoke, she continued, "At that time, Uncle Yi and Senior Yi Tong were also there. Now, Uncle Yi has no impression of me. Presumably, he also erased the memory of me at that time. Senior Yi Tong should have done the same thing." P.S. Ruoxian went back to the past era. An old drunkard at that time did indeed see that Ruoxian was not from that era at a glance. It was mentioned in the previous chapter, but it was quite obscure. Everyone may not have noticed it. You can look back and read chapter 989 carefully. You should be able to find it. Chapter 1948. Ruoxian Lin said, briefly telling him about the battle with the god of destruction and the others in the past. Hearing this, Lin Tian's expression suddenly changed. "The sixth heaven at that time? Did I erase my memory of that battle and you?" A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. "Later on, I always felt that I seemed to have forgotten a very important person. It turns out that it was you." Wishing Crocodile also stared at him. "It turns out that you said you forgot a very important person at that time. Moreover, at that time, some special things about the 10 heavens suddenly appeared in our sea of consciousness. There are other worlds outside the 10 heavens, and there are other realms after the Emperor realm. It turns out that it was Little Niece who told us about them." After that, it continued. "Also, when we first met Miss Wu Yi in the 7th heaven, no wonder you said that you seemed to have seen her before. It must be because you have seen Little Niece before. Although you erased your memory and don't remember Little Niece who returned at that time, subconsciously, you still have some vague impressions of her." Both the man and the crocodile had a surprised expression. "Time is really a wonderful thing." Lin Tian smiled. Some of the doubts in the past were solved at this time, and he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. On this day, a group of people gathered together, and there was warmth and laughter. In the blink of an eye, It was the next day. On this day, Lin Tian borrowed 1,000 snow from Wu Yi, and then left the 10 heavens, preparing to transcend his tribulation in the starry sky. 1,000 snow was Wu Yi's divine origin weapon, containing infinite power of order. It can definitely block his divine emperor tribulation easily. Daddy-daughter will go too! Ruoxian Lin hugged Lin Tian's arm, wanting to see Lin Tian transcend his tribulation. Okay. Lin Tian smiled. On this day, he took his precious daughter to the starry sky. After an hour, he found a desolate planet in the starry sky, and then directly broke through to the divine emperor realm. Suddenly, with a boom, the sky trembled, and a huge black vortex appeared. Endless blood-red lightning interweaved within it. Each bolt was like a blood-red dragon, as if it could destroy everything. How terrifying! As strong as Ruoxian was, she could not help but shrink back when facing Lin Tian's God-Emperor tribulation. However, while she was a little shocked, there was a strange light in her eyes and some excitement. That was because even though she knew that her father was extraordinary and that he was the strongest reincarnated being in the legends, and that every time he crossed the big realm after the airborne realm, he would trigger the lightning punishment of the heavenly tribulation. However, she had never seen her father go through the heavenly tribulation with her own eyes. She was naturally very surprised to see it this time. Boom! The sky was shaking. The deity emperor level thunder punishment rolled. A black vortex stretched across the sky. The blood-red lightning continued to wreak havoc. Lin Tian was in the center of the heavenly tribulation, and he could feel how terrifying his godly emperor tribulation was. He immediately summoned Qianxue to protect her. It was also at this moment that a thunderous boom rang out as boundless lightning punishment descended. The first round of lightning punishment directly descended, drowning out all directions. Hum! Qianxue emitted a gentle light. Even though it was only a quasi-divine royal weapon, its power was far beyond that of a quasi-divine royal weapon. Lin Tian did not use it to attack. It only emitted a gentle light to protect his body, and it directly shattered the first round of lightning punishment. It also protected this desolate planet that had no life. It's really strong, Lin Tian said to himself. Boom! Just as he was talking to himself, thunder boomed in the sky. The second round of lightning punishment struck straight down. This round of lightning punishment was much stronger than the first. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. However, Qianxue still shattered it easily. Qianxue, who was emitting a gentle light, was like a divine instrument that set the sky. It seemed that no power could do anything to it. Lin Tian stood inside the protective light curtain created by Qianxue. He took out the immortal Emperor Pagoda and used the lightning punishment in the sky to continue forging his original divine weapon. After that, thunder boomed unceasingly. Round after round of lightning punishment struck down. After a few hours, his godly Emperor tribulation dispersed. The sky became bright again. 7-colored auspicious clouds appeared and floated over. The rainbow-colored auspicious clouds were a gift from the heavenly tribulation. They contained boundless might. Lin Tian immediately circulated the Sun Heart Sutra to refine the rainbow-colored divine light and consolidate his current cultivation, causing his essence, energy, and soul to become more and more stable. Then, after a quarter of an hour, the 7-colored auspicious clouds dispersed and disappeared. Initial godly emperor realm. Lin Tian's body was surrounded by divine light. His eyes were bright. He clenched his fists and sensed how strong he was now. He had become a godly emperor realm cultivator and had undergone a great change. With his current fighting capabilities, even though he was only at the initial godly emperor realm, he was strong enough to dominate this realm. Ordinary godly emperors would not be able to stop him. Congratulations, Dad, for reaching the godly emperor realm. Ruoxian Lin jumped over from afar. Lin Tian smiled. Then, he reconstructed the immortal Emperor Pagoda with his mind. At this time, as he reached the godly Emperor realm, the immortal Emperor Pagoda turned into a godly Emperor weapon. The lightning seals on it were even more majestic. Let's go back. He smiled and called out to Ruoxian Lin. They left the desolate star and returned to the 10 Directions ancient star in a short time. He went to the Celestial Lyceum immediately. Wu Yi and the others were still there. With a whoosh, Qianxue rushed out of his body and returned to Wu Yi. Brother, you've reached the godly emperor realm. Not bad. Your cultivation is even higher than little Yi's, Ziling said. Wishing Crocodile sneered. It's useless to have a high cultivation. If we fight, I'm sure you'll be defeated easily. Lin Tian raised his hand, sending it flying with a slap. What kind of nonsense was this? Then, he looked at Wu Yi and told Wu Yi about the ancient site he found in the godly king of destruction's sea of consciousness. He asked Wu Yi to go with him, and see what he could learn from the ancient site. A super ancient site? Did those 7 old fogies discover such an extraordinary place? Their strength increased greatly in just 2 or 3 months. They found a quasi-god emperor weapon? And they only excavated less than 3% of the ancient site? Wishing Crocodile's eyes widened in shock. Hearing Lin Tian's words, Violet Fairy, Jiyu, and the others could not help but be shocked. They felt that the ancient site was really amazing. It sounds amazing. Ruoxian Lin wants to go too, Lin Ruoxian said, her eyes shining brightly, looking like she was about to make a move. Wu Yi looked at her gently and asked Lin Tian, Shall we go now? Well, let's go now. There's nothing special here. Lin Tian smiled. Chapter 1949. After leaving the 10 Directions ancient star, Lin Tianyi and the others moved very quickly. Not long after, they entered the starry sky and entered the celestial realm. That ancient site was located in a vast desert in the celestial realm. I haven't been to the celestial realm for a long time. Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue. Then, he revealed a sinister smile. Speaking of which, back in the celestial realm, the Jia clan, He clan, and the other clans had caused trouble for us. Why don't we pay them a visit? The trip it spoke of was naturally not a simple trip. It wanted to teach those big clans a lesson. There's no need. Don't bother with them. Lin Tian now. There were dozens of king prefectures in the celestial realm. Back then, the Jia clan and He clan of these prefectures had caused trouble for them and hunted them down. In the celestial realm of this era, they were considered quite powerful forces. However, these powers that could be considered quite powerful in the immortal realms were simply too weak when compared to the current Qin Wentian and Qin Wentian. After all, the strongest experts from these clans were only at the immortal king realm. As for Qin Wentian and Qin Wentian, the weakest among them was a heavenly deity. These powers could no longer enter their eyes. Now they were like giant elephants, and those clans were like ants. Giant elephants like them no longer needed to deliberately step on those small ants. Of course, the most important thing was that although those clans had caused trouble for them, they did not suffer at all. On the contrary, those clans had suffered at their hands time and time again. Their divine sons and saint sons were all killed by them. He called out to Wu Yi and the others. They moved along a fixed direction and tore open spatial passageways time and time again to move. After that, half a day passed in the blink of an eye. Half a day passed. On this day, he led the group and appeared in a desert in the southeastern part of the celestial realm. The desert was vast and boundless. It was at least tens of millions of times larger than the total area of the 10 Directions ancient star. There was yellow sand everywhere. He led the group into the desert, and soon arrived at the center of the desert. We're here, he said. The ancient site found in the godly king of destruction's consciousness was located at this place. He brought Wu Yi, Jiyu, and the others to this place. The godly emperor-level divine power surged, and the surrounding space suddenly distorted. Not long after, a crack appeared, and waves of terrifying cold air came out from it. It was as if the 9 underworlds were behind it. The ancient ruins weren't exposed to the world, but rather hidden within the void. Because countless years had passed, a crack coincidentally appeared in the nearby void. It was discovered by the divine king of destruction, who had descended to the celestial realm from the lower realm. After that, he entered the crack and discovered many strange objects. The last time, the godly king of destruction and the rest of the seven left the ancient site. They were worried that others would discover the ancient site, so they used their godly king-level divine power to seal the crack. If one didn't come to this place and didn't possess divine power that surpassed the godly king level, no one would discover it. Back then, he had searched the divine king of destruction's consciousness and learned everything. Now that he had appeared here, with his divine emperor-level strength, he could easily erase the seal left behind by the divine king of destruction, causing the crack to reappear. Come, let's go in. He beckoned Wu Yi and the others to go in. He was the last to step in. Then, like the divine king of destruction and the others, he sealed the crack again to prevent the aura of the ancient site from continuing to leak out and attract other experts. As they stepped into the crack, the scene in front of them changed instantly. The space was dark and gloomy. Huge palaces were connected to each other, and all of them were made of ancient stone materials. There was an incomparably shocking aura of time flowing around them. This group of palaces has existed for at least tens of millions of years. Ruo Xianlin was shocked. She controlled time and was very sensitive to it. She was shocked by the aura of time here. So long? The group, except for Wu Yi, were all shocked. 10 million years was definitely a terrifying number. This place had existed for at least 10 million years. This was really frightening. No matter how long it has existed, let's go in. Lin Tian now. This group of palaces was completely connected. He walked at the front and led the group through the stone door. Inside the stone palace, the air was cold and gloomy. The space was even gloomier. There were wisps of black fog floating in the air. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Something rushed over from the front. It had a pair of blood-red eyes and a rotten body. The aura of death was very strong. It was a dead creature that was comparable to a mystic immortal expert. Lin Tian raised his hand and smashed it with a slap. Black blood splattered, emitting a foul smell. Practically as soon as he killed this undead creature, a dense mass of blood-red eyes lit up in the darkness ahead. An extremely large number of similar undead creatures charged over from the front. It was like an army of death, and every single one of these undead creatures was comparable to a mysterious immortal realm cultivator. There are so many dead creatures and such a strong aura. Could this ancient site be a super ancient tomb? Wishing Crocodile was moved. It is indeed a tomb. Lin Tian now. From the godly king of destruction's consciousness, this ancient site was indeed suspected to be a super ancient tomb. As he said this, golden pure yang flame appeared outside his body. It turned into a golden sea of fire that surged forward. In the blink of an eye, all the dead creatures were annihilated. Not even the black blood was left behind. They were all incinerated. Let's go, he said and led the way into the depths of the ancient tomb. After that, as they moved forward, they encountered many more dead creatures. There were even existences comparable to the heavenly god Tyr. However, they were nothing and were easily dealt with by him. After all, he was now in the divine emperor realm. After that, it did not take long before many Tao patterns appeared in front of them. They were intertwined with a very shocking killing intent. These Tao patterns! Wishing Crocodile could not help but be shocked. The killing intent of these Tao patterns was so strong that it could threaten a divine emperor expert. At the same time, Ruo Xianlin, Violet Fairy, Shui Yi, and the others were also moved. These are naturally born marks. At the same time, they are intertwined with other forces from the void. It's terrifying. Lin Tian now. He cultivated the dragon burial scripture. At this time, he saw through everything at a glance. Then, he roughly understood that the supreme god king of destruction and the others should have reached here and could not go any further. Do you have a way to solve this? Wishing Crocodile asked. Yes. Lin Tian now. If he was in the divine king realm, he might not be able to do anything about these Tao patterns. However, now that he had the support of a divine emperor and the dragon burial scripture, it was not difficult to solve this. In the end, when these Tao patterns were combined, it was equivalent to a shocking layout of heaven and earth. It was not difficult for him. Immediately, strands of dragon marks gushed out from the soles of his feet and spread to the Tao patterns. In the blink of an eye, all the Tao patterns disappeared. The intertwined killing intent also disappeared. Father is so powerful! Ruoxian Lin smiled. She also cultivated the dragon burial scripture. However, her cultivation was not as good as Lin Tian's. Although she saw through the situation, she did not have the ability to solve it. Lin Tianyi smiled and continued to lead the way. Soon they were very far away. At this time, a stone room appeared in front of them. The stone door of the stone room was opened casually. There were many elixir bottles in the room. They were scattered around, and some of them were even on the ground. Chapter 1950. In the stone room, there were piles of jade pill bottles scattered around. Lin Tian scanned them with his divine will and immediately discovered that the Baodan pills in these bottles were all extraordinary. There were Wind Snow Divine Soul pills, 9 Turns Extreme pills, Ice Phoenix pills, and so on. Every single one of these Baodan pills was shockingly valuable. They were even useful to ordinary godly kings. Because of this, he felt that this super-ancient tomb was far too extraordinary. There were so many precious Baodan piled up here. It felt like these precious Baodan pills were useless trash. We've struck it rich! Wuxing Crocodile naturally recognized these Baodan pills. His eyes lit up, and he almost drooled. This is really... Bai Qiu stared. Shuiyi, Sushu, and the others were shocked as well. There were so many Baodan pills here. Together, it was definitely a shocking treasure trove. Ruoxian Lin was also shocked. Just these Baodan pills alone, she said. The ladies, aunts, Uncle Master Ya, Uncle Master Ziyue, Uncle Yi, Uncle Tai Chu, and senior sister Ai can all reach the godly king realm. The Baodan pills here were far too extraordinary. Moreover, there were so many of them that no one knew how many there were. Lin Tian took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, he said to Jiyu and the others, "You guys choose the Baodan pills here that can increase your cultivation. Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and I will protect you." Okay. The group nodded and immediately got to work. Even little Tai Chu, who had the primordial immortal empire, was no exception. Soon, they picked out many immortal pills and precious medicines that could increase their cultivation and began to refine and absorb them in the stone room. For a moment, various divine lights and demonic lights intersected in this place. The group's essence, chi, and spirit rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. Over the past 6 months, waves of powerful divine might surged within the stone chamber. Jiyu, Sushu, Shuiyi, Bai Qiu, Lin Shi, the Violet Fairy, Ziyu Yen Ye, Ai, Wishing Crocodile, and little Tai Chu had all reached the divine king realm. Moreover, there were many treasured medicines that could stabilize the foundations of cultivation in the stone room. When they broke through to God King, they refined the treasured medicines that could stabilize their foundations, so their current God King cultivation was extremely stable. There were also some treasured medicines that could strengthen the souls of God Kings. They had refined some of them as well, and they were quite effective. Ruoxian Lin was also in the Divine King realm, at the early Divine King realm. However, she had been in this realm for hundreds of years, so she was very stable in all aspects. The Baodan here was useless to her. As for Wu Yi, it was needless to say. Although he was in the half-step Divine Emperor realm, he couldn't even compare to a Divine Emperor in all aspects. He had no use for the Baodan. Lin Tian waved his hand and collected all the remaining Baodan in the stone chamber. There were still many of them left. These Baodan were useless to them now, but they were of great significance to the Immortal Court. If they brought these Baodan back to the Immortal Court would have at least 1,000 divine kings in a short period of time. 1,000 divine kings! This was enough to make the Immortal Court the #1 inheritance in the immortal domain. It was even more powerful than the Lord Theological Seminary. What kind of existence is this ancient tomb? This is simply too frightening. There is actually a pile of immortal pills and precious medicines in this stone room that is casually opened. Whooshing Crocodile was both excited and shocked. It's a little scary. Even the Violet Fairy said so. Lin Tian was naturally surprised, but he didn't think too much about it. He called the group and continued to go deeper. As they went deeper into the ancient tomb, the air became gloomier and the black fog became thicker. More terrifying undead creatures appeared. None of them were weak, and the aura of death they exuded was as oppressive as a stormy sea. However, this was nothing. Lin Tianxing was at the front. As a godly emperor, he activated the 5 Thunder Sky Shock Incantation, a divine skill that specialized in restraining evil and undead creatures. He easily crushed all the dead souls. Not long after, another stone chamber appeared in front of them. There were many ancient books in it, all of which were cultivation methods. Moreover, these cultivation methods were amazing. The group glanced at them. Except for Wu Yi, everyone else was shocked. Among them, there were even saint-grade ancient scriptures and saint-grade divine arts. This is really... Whooshing Crocodile opened his eyes wide. The value of these ancient scriptures was too great. Bring them all back and fill them in the Immortal Court's scripture depository. Lin Tian started to collect all the ancient scriptures. For the Immortal Court, this was another great treasure. As for the group, each of them had an extraordinary ancient scripture. Lin Tian himself, Jiyu, Sushu, Shuiyi, Baiqiu, Lin Shi, and Ruoxian Lin all cultivated the ancient scriptures of the 9 celestial lords. Lin Tian had also taught Ziyue and Yenya the Taiyin ancient scripture. Those 9 people's ancient scriptures were extraordinary, definitely not inferior to saint-grade ancient scriptures. Little Taichu's ancient scripture was left by the ancestor of the Immortal Spirit Imperial family. It was compatible with the bloodline of the Immortal Spirit Imperial family. It was far superior to saint-grade ancient scriptures. Violet Fairy's Void God Slaying Tao was very powerful and domineering. The more she cultivated it, the more terrifying it was. There was no need to change to another ancient scripture. AI's master was Wu Yi, so her ancient scripture was naturally not bad. Whooshing Crocodile's ancient scripture was found in a dark gorge. It was also very exquisite. Like Little Taichu, that cultivation method was very compatible with its bloodline. It had always thought that it was left by the Whooshing Crocodile's crocodile ancestor. It was also because of this that it often talked about the crocodile ancestor. Wu Yi, on the other hand, had no need to change to another ancient scripture. There's no need to change our ancient scriptures. However, we can comprehend the divine powers and secret arts in the future. There's absolutely no harm in cultivating a few more divine powers and secret arts. It's extraordinary, Lin Tian said. After that, he called the group and continued to go deeper. Then, in the blink of an eye, more than 6 hours passed. When they turned a corner, the scene in front of them suddenly changed. They actually appeared in a strange large space. Around them were mountains connected to each other. Dried bones were everywhere on the ground. It was like the legendary underworld. Boom! In the distance, in a huge mountain, a wave of death surged. It was as black as ink, and a blood-red eye opened in it. It was cold and terrifying. It stared at Lin Tian and the others. It seemed to have sensed the aura of living people on them. The next moment, there was another rumble. Behind the huge mountain, the blood-red eye and the wave of death moved and rushed out. It was a huge demon bird with black wings. The aura of death was extremely terrifying. It pounced on Lin Tian and the others. It's comparable to the Divine Emperor realm. Whooshing Crocodile stared. Chapter 1951. The demon bird at the Emperor God level was extremely terrifying. Its demonic power was surging and Lin Tian was shocked. However, at this moment, the seed of the world in his body trembled slightly. The primordial light of the world was resonating with something in the depths of the ancient tomb. His heart skipped a beat. Was there something in this ancient tomb that the seed of the world needed to blossom and bear fruit? Mixed sacred source, thousand-wood root, Mysterious yellow essence, yin-yang silk, 5 elements egg. Now, only the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg are left. Which one is in this place? His eyes shone with surprise and joy. He did not expect that there would be something in this ancient tomb that could help the seed of the world to blossom and bear fruit. At this moment, there was a rumbling sound. The sky shook and the great void collapsed. The demon bird pounced forward, its demonic power vast and mighty. Its aura was extremely terrifying. Even though he had reached the Divine Emperor realm, he could not withstand it. After all, the gap between the Divine Emperor realm and the Emperor God realm was huge. Without Wu Yi's special method of controlling order, it was impossible to cross the gap. Jiyu, Baiqiu, Sushu and the others had all reached the Divine King realm. Their strength was not bad, but they were no match for the demon bird. Ruo Xianlin hugged his arm and looked at the demon bird. She shrank back. Its aura was really terrifying. Lin Tian looked at his precious daughter and smiled. Then he said to Wu Yi, "You do it." Now that they had encountered such a God-Emperor-level devil bird, Wu Yi was the only one in the group who could deal with it. Wu Yi did not say anything and nodded gently. Then, in the next moment, the space in front of them twisted slightly, and the demon bird exploded. Such a scene could be said to be extremely shocking. Other than the Violet Fairy who knew Wu Yi the best, everyone else trembled. They all knew that Wu Yi was very strong. Although his cultivation was at the half-step Divine Emperor realm, his fighting strength was not something a half-step Divine Emperor could compare to. He was even stronger than an Emperor God. However, at this moment, they could not help but tremble when they saw the demon bird at the Emperor God level being killed so easily. They did not even see Wu Yi do anything. "Mother is so scary!" Ruo Xianlin shrunk her neck. Wu Yi tilted her head and looked at her. "A daughter is saying, 'Mother is so beautiful!'" Ruo Xianlin quickly corrected herself. Lin Tian smiled. This last was truly mischievous. Ji Yu, Shui Yi, Baiqiu, and Sushu could not help but smile. At the same time, their eyes were filled with love. Although Ruo Xianlin was not their biological daughter, she was still their daughter. Moreover, this daughter was so outstanding. This place was gloomy and eerie. Black mist interweaved, and the aura of death was extremely thick. Lin Tian spoke. He and Wu Yi walked at the very front, continuing to head towards the depths of the ancient tomb. "There's something I need in the depths of the tomb." As he walked deeper in, he spoke and briefly told the group about the world seed. Walking in this space, there were many skeletons on the ground. From time to time, they could see potholes filled with red fluid. It was turbid blood. "These skeletons do not seem to belong to those who came here to dig up tombs and died. It is more like this space itself is a battlefield. These skeletons seem to belong to those who fought against their enemies on this battlefield and died in the end," Jiyu said. Jiyu said. She did not have a sovereign body, nor did she have an amazing bloodline. However, her cultivation talent was very strong, not inferior to that of an ordinary sovereign body. She was also very intelligent. At this time, she saw something. Hearing her say this, Lin Tian looked around seriously. After that, he also saw something strange. "It does seem very similar." "Indeed." Violet Fairy and the others also looked around and nodded. After that, this naturally made the group curious. This was an ancient tomb. In the ancient tomb, there was a vast alternate space. They did not find it strange. This was because some great Tao-level cultivators had the ability to create such alternate spaces in their own tombs. However, there was an ancient battlefield in an ancient tomb. This was a little strange. Who would move a battlefield into their own tomb? However, although the group felt that this was a little strange, they did not pay too much attention to it. Lin Tian spoke and beckoned the group to continue walking deeper into the ancient tomb. This space that seemed to be a battlefield was very eerie. As they went deeper, wave after wave of dead creatures appeared. Most of them were at the true immortal level, or the heavenly god level. Most of them were killed by Lin Tian, who was walking in front. Occasionally, some dead creatures comparable to the God Emperor level appeared. However, Wu Yi directly wiped them out using the law of space. Wherever her gaze passed, the space was her killing weapon. She did not even need to do anything. At the same time, when they occasionally encountered some God King level dead creatures, Gu and the others also took the initiative to attack and kill them. Now that they had reached the height of a God King, battling against those of the same level was very beneficial to their cultivation. This ancient tomb is really a little scary. There are even God Emperor level dead creatures. It's really scary. Wishing Crocodile sighed. After all, this is a place where even saint-level ancient scriptures are casually thrown around. The tomb owner of this ancient tomb was at least at the Saint King level back then. It's normal for the tomb of a Saint King level cultivator to give birth to dead creatures comparable to the God Emperor level. Lin Tian Andao. The group continued forward. Not long after, ripples appeared in the space. They walked out of this eerie space and then appeared in an even more vast alternate space. After that, they traveled through this new alternate space for about a few days. Wu Yi took care of many powerful obstacles and then walked out of this vast alternate space. Then, another alternate space awaited them. This one was much larger than the previous two. On the horizon, mountains were connected to each other. It was obviously many times more majestic than the mountains in the previous two alternate spaces. Moreover, there were even large rivers on the ground. The water was rolling, but they were surrounded by black chi. It looked like the underworld. What's wrong with this ancient tomb? Could it be that the deeper we go, the more interconnected the different spaces? Wishing Crocodile frowned. It's not a simple alternate space. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he sized up the surroundings before he said, "The space we're in right now can already be considered to be a large world, and it isn't much smaller than the immortal domain. Or perhaps this was a real large world, and it was forcefully moved here from somewhere else." He was now in the Divine Emperor realm. His divine consciousness was very powerful, and his eyesight was amazing. He could see that this space was extraordinary. Once he said this, apart from Wu Yi, everyone else was visibly moved. This explanation was truly a little too shocking. Could this space have originally been a large world? Was it moved here by force? The owner of this tomb moved a real great world into his tomb? This? Wishing Crocodile stared. Chapter 1952. Someone had actually moved a real world into his tomb. This was truly a shocking matter. What is the tomb owner trying to do? Everyone was shocked. Ordinary great worlds could be moved by celestial emperors. However, to move such a great world into one's own tomb, this was somewhat inconceivable. What was the purpose of doing this? To decorate his tomb? Wishing Crocodile asked. To decorate his tomb with a real world? Z rolled her eyes. If that's the case, it's too extravagant. Forget it. Let's not care about it. Let's go straight in. Lin Tian now. In this great world, there were many mountains, and many rivers were shrouded in mist. Obviously, they were originally normal mountains and rivers, but after being moved into this ancient tomb, they were eroded by the chi of the ancient tomb, so they became like this. He and Wu Yi walked at the front. This world was very vast. After walking for some distance, some of the mountains became very dilapidated. The surface was also very broken. There were many places with broken bones. It was somewhat similar to the battlefield in the alternate space. Could this great world have also been a battlefield in the past? The group was shocked. This was because it seemed that a very shocking battle had happened in this world. The world was broken, and many places were full of cracks that were difficult to heal. However, although they had such a guess at this time, it was not important to them. They were just a little curious about this place. With Lin Tian and Wu Yi in the lead, the group walked in this gloomy world. They did not encounter any special danger and soon stepped out of this world. Later, to their surprise, they found many more great worlds in this ancient tomb. These great worlds were also dilapidated. They were like battlefields that were connected to this ancient tomb by a great method. Terrifying. What is the background of this tomb owner? He actually put so many great worlds in his tomb. Wishing Crocodile was shocked. Lin Tian was also surprised, but he didn't care too much about it because they couldn't understand these things no matter how hard they tried. Following that, they continued to advance. As they went deeper and deeper, the yin qi in the air became denser and denser. The dangers they encountered also increased. Many times, they could even threaten God Emperor level powerhouses. However, with Wu Yi accompanying them, these dangers were nothing. Wu Yi used the space god law to open the way, and all the dangers they encountered were easily eliminated. During this process, they found even more treasures. Many of these treasures were extremely useful to god kings. After some time, we'll find White Pig Head, Pervert Ling, and the others and gather together. Come to think of it, we've been separated for a long time. Some of the bowed and elixirs that we found in this ancient tomb will be of great use to them, Lin Tian said. Wishing Crocodile nodded and said, Indeed. We haven't seen brother-in-law and little Pervert Ling for more than 1,000 years. Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, Fanning Xiong, and the others were their comrades in the 10-direction sky domain. Back then, they had followed Lin Qianni to establish the Immortal Court. Naturally, they were very close. After not seeing each other for more than 1,000 years, it was indeed time to get together. We have to find little Yi Tong and little Fox too. They've been busy preaching for the Immortal Court all these years, Jiyu said. Of course I won't forget. Lin Tian nodded with a smile. Since he started cultivating, he had encountered several special situations. He had always resolved them with the help of the power of faith in the Immortal Emperor Pagoda. The power of faith had been obtained by his 2 disciples for preaching to the world. It was definitely very useful to him. Then, he looked at Yenya and said, We'll have to rely on Yer to deduce their specific whereabouts. I'll go and find them one by one. All right, Yenya said with a smile. Ruoxian hugged Lin Tian's arm and smiled sweetly. Daughter wants to go too. She had been staying in the 10-direction sky domain all these years. Basically, she had been shuttling back and forth between the ethereal mountain and the Immortal Court. Apart from watching Lin Tian's tribulation and leaving the 10-direction sky domain for this ancient tomb, she hadn't been to the outside world. She also hadn't gone with Lin Tianni. Now that she heard that Lin Tian was going to look for some old friends, she naturally wanted to go with him. All right, Lin Tian said with a smile. Naturally, he wouldn't refuse. The group walked through the ancient tomb. Although the air was gloomy, there was a lot of laughter between them. Soon, 7 days had passed. In these 7 days, they encountered more dangerous situations. There were a few times when they could threaten a peak emperor god, but they were all resolved by Wu Yi. 7 days later. On this day, they stepped into another dilapidated macro world in the ancient tomb. The dark yin qi was extremely dense. The entire macro world seemed to be surrounded by yin qi. There was a blood-red sun hanging in the sky, giving people a terrifying feeling. At this moment, Lin Tian's expression changed. The world seed in his body trembled violently again. This made his heart skip a beat. Based on this scene, he felt that the divine item in this ancient tomb that could make the world seed bloom and bear fruit was in this macro world. He briefly explained this to the group. Then, with the fluctuation of the world seed in his body, he moved quickly in this dilapidated macro world. After about 6 hours, he appeared in front of an abyss. As far as the eye could see, the abyss was dark and bottomless. There was an extremely dense yin-yang qi coming from below. It was very frightening. It's down here! His eyes lit up. Then, he called for the group to descend into the abyss. Soon, they arrived at the bottom of the abyss. Following the senses of the world seed, they walked down the abyss and came to a small forest. In the forest, the ancient trees were intertwined with yin-yang qi. Soon, they walked to the center of the small forest. There was a large pond in front of them. The pond was filled with yin-yang qi that alternated between black and white. There was a fist-sized halo at the center of the large pond. It seemed to be the core of the yin-yang pond. Seeing the halo, Lin Tian immediately revealed a joyful expression. Yin-yang silk! Sushu and the rest were shocked. The yin-yang qi in the large pond was too dense. The aura was very terrifying. "Wait for me here," Lin Tian said to the group. Then, he walked forward. The world seed in his body emitted a strange light. Strands of light spread to his arm. Then, he directly raised his hand and reached into the large pond. The yin-yang qi in the large pond was very terrifying. Even some peak divine emperors would die if they fell in. They did not dare to touch it casually. However, with the protection of the world seed's light, he did not care about the yin-yang qi. He directly grabbed the yin-yang silk. Chapter 1953. The yin-yang silk was about the size of a fist, and the extremely pure yin and yang energy intertwined, causing the space to distort slightly. As expected of something condensed from primordial mother qi. This level of yin and yang energy is too amazing, Wishing Crocodile exclaimed. Even though he had seen divine items like the mysterious yellow essence and mixed saint source, which were also condensed from primordial Xianhuang energy and primordial chaos energy, he still couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the yin-yang silk. Lin Tian kept the yin-yang silk in his body, then took out the immortal Emperor Pagoda and collected all the yin and yang source qi in the pool. The yin and yang source qi was very dense and contained an astonishing amount of energy and destructive power. It was entangled with each other, and it was difficult for ordinary methods to extract the energy. However, when he refined the mysterious yellow essence into the world seed, he accidentally extracted the majestic energy from the mysterious yellow essence. Therefore, he felt that when he refined the yin-yang silk into the world seed in the future, he might be able to extract the energy from the mysterious yellow essence and use it. "Congratulations, Father," Ruoxian smiled. She already knew from Lin Tian that the yin-yang silk was very important to Lin Tian. Lin Tian smiled and rubbed her head. Then, he called the others and continued to walk into the depths of the ancient tomb. This ancient tomb was very amazing, and it was an unexpected surprise to obtain the yin-yang silk here. It was a huge gain for him, but he still had to continue exploring the ancient tomb. The deeper they went, the more treasures they might find. Not a single one of the treasures in this ancient tomb was ordinary. They were all extremely valuable. Immediately, the group left this place and continued to walk into the depths of the ancient tomb. After that, a full month passed in the blink of an eye. In this 1 month's time, Lin Tian and Wu Yu were at the forefront, encountering many dangers and difficulties along the way. Some of the dangers could even threaten second saints, but in the end, they were unable to stop their footsteps and were all resolved by Wu Yi. During this process, they obtained even more treasures. There were immortal herbs and divine plants that could temper the flesh and soul, which were very useful for godly emperor experts. They also found many godly emperor weapons, and some other extraordinary items. "I have to say, the 7 old fools of the God King of Destruction have really found a super treasure trove for us," Lin Tian now. They had only been in this ancient tomb for a few months, but their harvest was already shocking enough. They had obtained dozens of saint-level ancient scriptures, hundreds of divine abilities and secret techniques, a yin-yang silk, hundreds of deity sovereign weapons and deity sovereign weapons, rare pills and treasures that were useful even to deity kings, and divine herbs that were useful to deity emperors. With so many divine weapons and treasures gathered together, even the chaotic clan and the mysterious ancient clan, which were the so-called 6 legendary clans, couldn't compare to them even if they combined all of their treasures over a long period of time. The difference was too great. At the same time, it was all thanks to Wu Yi. If it weren't for Wu Yi, they wouldn't have been able to obtain so many treasures. Along the way, they encountered some terrifying dangers that would have directly taken their lives and buried them in this ancient tomb. The group continued to move forward. Not long after, another 7 days passed. 7 days later, on this day, the group stopped. A horrifying scene appeared before them. There were several dozen damaged true worlds that had been compressed to an extremely small size. They were linked together, devouring the essence of heaven and earth. Just by looking at it from far away, the group of people trembled. Even someone as powerful as Lin Tian felt like his soul was about to shatter just by looking at it. This made his heart palpitate. The owner of this ancient tomb was really too terrifying. Inside this ancient tomb, there really were real great worlds everywhere. There were even dozens of broken great worlds that were linked together, naturally forming this kind of destructive layout. Can it be solved? Lin Tian asked Wu Yi. Ji Yu, Su Shu, and the others also looked at Wu Yi. This pattern was too frightening, so they all stayed far away. Wu Yi looked ahead and gently shook her head. This surprised Shui Yi and the others. Wu Yi's strength was obvious to all along the way. She was very terrifying and truly invincible. But now, even someone as strong as Wu Yi couldn't break this pattern in this place? The Violet Fairy said. Little Yi Yi's current realm can't bring out much of her strength. In fact, the strength that we see now is less than 1/10,000th of her real strength. A person's strength needed a corresponding realm to bring it out. The strength that the cultivators in the world possessed was often equivalent to their cultivation realm. They could all bring out 100% of their strength. But Wu Yi was different. Wu Yi's strength had far exceeded her current realm. With her current realm, it was very difficult for her to bring out her true strength. This was like giving a divine emperor weapon to a body-refining cultivator. With the body-refining realm, it was impossible for a body-refining cultivator to bring out the true power of a divine emperor weapon. They couldn't even bring out the tip of the iceberg. The Violet Fairy and Wu Yi had been good friends for many years. She knew Wu Yi the best. She knew very well how strong Wu Yi really was. When Ji Yu, Shui Yi, and the others heard this, they were all greatly shocked. The strength that Wu Yi had displayed before was already frightening enough to make one's hair stand on end. But now, the Violet Fairy said that such combat power was not even 1/10,000th of Wu Yi's true strength. Even Lin Tian was shocked. Then, he paused and asked Wu Yi, "Did you deliberately stay below the Divine Emperor realm?" The Violet Fairy's words only surprised him for a moment. Because he had already felt that Wu Yi's strength and realm were far beyond the half-divine Emperor realm. It was definitely because of some reason that she deliberately stayed below the Divine Emperor realm. Wu Yi nodded and said softly, "Yes." This surprised everyone except the Violet Fairy. Wu Yi deliberately stayed below the Divine Emperor realm and didn't break through. Is it because she comprehended the power of order? However, it seems that Mother has already mastered the power of order very well. Ruoxian muttered. It's just as I guessed. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Then, he didn't ask why Wu Yi deliberately stayed below the Divine Emperor realm. Instead, he asked about something else. Oh, how long will you stay at this realm? About 10 years. Wu Yi said. Oh, that's not too long. For cultivators at their level, 10 years was really nothing. Then, he didn't ask any more questions. He called the others to leave. Lin Tian. Yenye suddenly called out to Lin Tian Dao. Bai Ziki and the others are in danger. Chapter 1954. What? Upon hearing Yenye's words, Lin Tian's expression changed. Bai Ziki and the others were in danger? Bai Qiu's expression changed. He asked anxiously. Yeah, what danger? Where is my brother now? Beside him, Ji Yu and the others were also shocked. Yenye had calculated that Bai Ziki and the others were in danger. Naturally, she had calculated the exact location. Let's go! Without hesitation, Lin Tian now led the group out of the ancient tomb along the path they had taken to enter the tomb. This ancient tomb was extraordinary. It contained at least dozens of real macro worlds. The space barrier was very strong. Even someone as strong as Wu Yi couldn't tear open the space and leave the ancient tomb. He could only go out the way he had come. Their speed was extremely fast, and it did not take long for them to exit the ancient tomb. Lin Tian resealed the crack that led to the ancient tomb. After which, he directly tore open a spatial door according to the coordinates given by Yenye, and led the group in. Not long after that, he led the group into a slightly gloomy great world. Looking around, there were groups of immortal mountains in this macro world. They were connected to each other. Immortal spiritual energy intertwined, but there was more of a cold aura. It was the Nether Chi. The new Nether World! Lin Tian's eyes lit up. He recognized this world. An old drunkard had asked him to find a divine item that could make the world seed blossom and bear fruit. He had mentioned this new Nether World. It was a new macro world formed from the remnants of the Nether World that had been shattered during the Great War of the Ancients. It was very vast. The new Nether World, the world of the Nether Clan and the Nether King. He muttered to himself. The Nether King was at the peak of the Emperor God level. He had fought against Celestial Venerable Zonglong and the others with the help of the Grand Supreme. He was almost invincible among those below the quasi-saint level. He had forced Celestial Venerable Zonglong and the others into a difficult situation, forcing 9 of them to reincarnate. He thought about this, but he didn't stay in the same place for too long. According to the coordinates given by Yen Yer, he quickly headed north of the new Netherworld. In the northern region of the new Netherworld, in a gloomy mountain, 2 people and a beast were gathered together, their bodies stained with blood. Brother-in-law Bai, I'm afraid we're really done for this time. Even if you're a God King, it's useless. We're seriously injured right now, and with these old things, we're done for. The 2 men and 1 beast were none other than Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the White Tiger. At this moment, the White Tiger bared its fangs, blood dripping from its mouth. Bai Ziki's expression was solemn. His clothes were stained with blood, and strands of lightning arcs were intertwining around his body. His aura was extremely oppressive, and there was a God King level aura revolving around him. It was as if he was the reincarnation of the most powerful thunder god from the primordial era. He gave off the feeling of a king. Fanning Xiong stood beside him. His body had become even more burly. His arms were thicker than the thighs of ordinary people, and his muscles were like dragons. With a single glance, one could tell that the strength in his muscles was extremely terrifying, as if it could crush everything. Outside the 2 men and 1 beast, there were dozens of figures surrounding them. All of them had powerful auras, and the weakest of them was a mid-divine king. The leader was even a half-step divine emperor. They had completely sealed off the escape route of the 2 men and 1 beast. At the same time, there were many corpses nearby. There were dozens of heavenly god experts who had died at the hands of Fanning Xiong and the White Tiger. There were also dozens of divine kings, including the corpse of a peak divine king expert. They had all been killed by Bai Ziki. Hand over the 5 elemental egg. You can't swallow it. Among the dozens of experts surrounding them, the leader spoke. Looking at the 2 men and 1 beast, he said coldly, "Besides, you're not bad. I'll give you a chance to live. After you hand over the 5 elemental egg and willingly accept the master-servant mother-child curse technique, and become the war slaves of the Nether tribe." Originally, they were exploring the 5 elemental secret valley when they encountered Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the White Tiger. When they saw the 2 men and 1 beast had obtained the legendary 5 elemental egg, they were moved and wanted to snatch it. However, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the White Tiger's strength shocked them. There were even 2 king bodies among them. Their fighting strength was shocking. They chased the 2 men and the beast all the way. Although they had forced the 2 men and the beast to a dead end, they had suffered heavy losses. Dozens of heavenly god experts and dozens of divine king experts had died at the hands of the 2 men and the beast. Their killing intent towards the 2 humans and the beast was naturally very strong. However, seeing that the 2 humans and the beast were so tyrannical, with 2 of them even having king bodies and the other having a shocking bloodline, they naturally had other thoughts. They wanted to seize the divine item, the 5-element egg, and turn the 2 humans and the beast into their own clan's battle slaves so that the 2 humans and the beast would fight for them forever. Moreover, after that, they could torture the 2 men and the beast as they wished. It was better than killing them directly. If you want it, let's see if you have the ability to do so. Bai Ziki's clothes were stained with blood. His face was pale and his essence, energy, and spirit were much weaker. However, his eyes were cold and his body was straight. Bolts of lightning circled around him. Fanning Xiong was ready for battle. It was impossible for him to give in. He used the little divine power he had left to hold up the immortal splitting mountain of the king's territory. Dozens of divine kings and a half-step divine emperor. The pitiful and elegant tiger is going to be buried here today. The white tiger looked distressed. We dug out the 5 elemental egg with great difficulty. It's going to be over before we can send it to Kid Lin. However, although it looked distressed, there was a powerful demonic power surging around its body. Like Fanning Xiong, it was also at the peak of heavenly god level. Its essence, energy, and spirit were extremely shocking. It was comparable to a half-step divine king. Seeing the 2 men and the beast's actions, the dozens of Nether tribe experts who were surrounding them looked even colder. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Die, said the leader. He attacked directly. Half-step divine emperor divine power surged and suppressed the 2 men and the beast. At the same time, the dozens of people attacked together. They didn't give the 2 men and the beast any chance to resist. The majestic divine power sealed the surroundings, causing the 2 men and the beast to tremble violently. At this moment, there was a loud clang and the ear-piercing sound of a sword. Lin Tian, Bai Qiu, and the others arrived at this moment. Lin Tian attacked directly. Golden sword she cut across the sky and cut through the space. It created a destructive hurricane that instantly shattered all the divine power that the dozens of people had released and sent them flying. Suddenly, blood exploded. Among the dozens of people, except for the half-step divine emperor and the other 3 peak divine kings, the other dozens of people were instantly killed. Brother! Bai Qiu's voice was filled with anxiety and worry. He was the fastest and rushed to the 2 men and the beast. He grabbed Bai Ziki and looked him up and down. He was afraid that his brother would be irreparably injured. Hey! Lin Tian, Wu Yi, and the others came to the 2 men and the beast. Lin Tian smiled and greeted them. Chapter 1955. Seeing Lin Tianyi and the others appear, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the white tiger were all moved. Oh, the ups and downs of a tiger's life. Boy Lin, you came at the right time. The white tiger still had a look of distress just now, already mentally prepared for death and going all out. But he did not expect that Lin Tian actually led a group of people and appeared before their eyes, directly resolving their crisis of death. Lin Tian. Fanning Xiong greeted Lin Tian. Blood was flowing out of his mouth, but he looked very honest and grinned. Why are you here? Asked Bai Ziki. The appearance of Lin Tian and his group at this place, resolving their crisis at the crucial moment, allowed them to relax, and they no longer had the sense of urgency from before. However, the sudden appearance of this group of people still somewhat surprised him. Well, you calculated that you were in danger and calculated the specific location, so we came here. Lin Tian now. As he spoke, he raised his hand and activated the sun's nirvana technique. A blood-red flame appeared and surrounded the 2 people and the beast. Soon, the injuries of the 2 people and the beast were mostly healed, and the blood on their bodies was also wiped away. Divine Emperor! Bai Ziki's eyes narrowed. At this time, he felt that Lin Tian's cultivation had reached the Divine Emperor realm. At the same time, Fanning Xiong and the white tiger naturally felt this and couldn't help but be surprised. You're cultivating really fast, said Bai Ziki. Then, he shook his right hand slightly and a light the size of a fist appeared. It was a crystal-like object, intertwined with a very amazing 5 elements qi. He handed it to Lin Tian and said, Here. Lin Tian took the crystal-like object from Bai Ziki and was shocked. He naturally recognized it and said, 5 elements egg! Then, almost at the same time, the 5 elements egg shone with a strange light. The yin-yang silk cloth in his body trembled slightly. Then, the world seed began to vibrate. Immediately, a primitive aura of the beginning of the world gushed out and spread out from his body. It turned into a beam of light that pierced through the sky. The primitive aura was extremely shocking. In the center of the new underworld, in the Imperial Nether City. That's the fluctuation of the world seed? In the Imperial Nether City, the Nether King, who was in seclusion in the Imperial Nether City, sensed the aura and was immediately awakened. His deep eyes flashed with a flash of light and he said, "That worm has appeared in the underworld?" In the next moment, he directly moved and stepped out of the Imperial Nether City. Buzz. Outside of Lin's body, the light was radiance was soft, but it was spotty. Inside his bodies, the world seed was like a god's eyes as was awakening God. This scene caused the expressions of the other people beside Wu Yi to change as they revealed shocked expressions. "This aura, it's really..." White Tiger was shocked. He felt that this aura was primitive and vast, as if it was nurturing all possibilities. "This is the light of the world seed." Wishing Crocodile's eyes widened. He had seen this kind of light before, so of course he remembered it. At this time, seeing this kind of light coming out of Lin Tian's body, and seeing that there was no danger nearby, he guessed something and said, "The world seed needs the mixed saintly source, the thousand-wood root, the mysterious yellow essence, the yin-yang silk, and the 5 elements egg. The mixed saintly source, the thousand-wood root, and the mysterious yellow essence have all been found and refined into the world seed. Not long ago, we obtained the yin-yang silk, and now we have the 5 elements egg. These 5 divine items are all extraordinary." Something like that. Lin Tian nodded when he heard Wishing Crocodile's guess. The mixed saintly source, the thousand-wood root, and the mysterious yellow essence had been refined into the world seed, and the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg were also found. At this time, although he hadn't refined them into the world seed still had a violent reaction. It was like a young child craving for the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg. It wanted to bloom. He took a deep breath and operated the Heart Sutra of Sunday. Then, he forcefully suppressed the reaction of the world seed, causing the world's primordial light to be absorbed into his body slowly. The world seed's blooming was a big deal. He planned to seriously refine the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg into the world seed after returning to the 10 directions heaven domain, so that the world seed could evolve into a real world in the most stable state. "You've helped a lot," he said to Baiziki, Fanningshiong, and the White Tiger with a smile. Before they parted on the ancient road in the immortal region, Baiziki and the others asked him to tell them the divine items needed for the world seed to bloom and bear fruit. After that, they helped him find them while they were cultivating. He didn't expect that they would really help him find one, and it was the 5 elements egg that he needed. At this moment, there were whooshing sounds in the air. 4 figures fled into the distance at an extremely fast speed. These 4 people were the ones who were lucky enough to survive Lin Tian's sword attack. One of them was a half-step divine emperor, and the other 3 were peak divine kings. Although they didn't die from Lin Tian's sword attack, they were seriously injured. Only now did they manage to regain their mobility. Then they chose to flee. Because, from Lin Tian's sword attack, the 4 of them clearly realized how terrifying Lin Tian was. He was definitely not someone they could withstand. Now that they had regained their mobility, they naturally chose to flee. "Oh, you still want to run? Boy Lin, kill them!" The White Tiger bared his teeth and scolded. "Previously, we found the 5 elements egg in a strange secret valley, but it was discovered by these people and dozens of others. They chased us all the way to steal it. I, brother-in-law Bai, and the barbarian king almost died here. Damn it!" Hearing this, Lin Tian finally understood why Baiziki, Fanningshiong, and the White Tiger were besieged and chased by these people. Then, he raised his hand, and 4 golden sword rays slashed out, slashing in the direction where the 4 of them had fled. The 4 sword lights were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they caught up with the 4 people. The 4 people didn't even have time to scream before they were smashed into pieces. "I've vented my anger." The White Tiger was quite happy. "Venting my anger is not important. What's important is that you're fine." Lin Tian smiled and then said, "We haven't seen each other for more than 1,000 years. Now, let's go back to the 10 directions heavenly territory. Later, I'll find Pervert Ling and the Black Dragon and have a reunion. Also, not long ago, we found many immortal treasures in an ancient tomb. When the time comes, you should all..." Boom! Suddenly, An extremely terrifying aura appeared in the distance. The powerful nether energy rolled and came close in the blink of an eye, interrupting his words. It was a middle-aged man. His eyes were cold and deep. The pressure of the Divine Emperor was so strong that it made the mountains and rivers in this place tremble. Nether King! Chapter 1956. The Nether King's eyes were cold as he rushed over to Lin Tian and the others. He immediately saw Lin Tian. It is indeed you, you worm! His voice was cold as boundless nether chi surged, completely sealing the surroundings. Then, he slowly walked toward Lin Tian. The nether realm seals the surroundings. No one will be able to sense what is happening here. The godly Dharch might surge, powerful and intimidating, causing Bai Ziki and the others to tremble slightly. After all, their cultivation was too weak compared to a godly Dharch realm expert. Are you afraid of my master? Lin Tian looked at the Nether King as he approached. He was not afraid at all and spoke sarcastically. The Nether King's expression darkened because Lin Tian was right. He was indeed afraid of an old drunkard. An old drunkard had appeared on the ancient road in the celestial realm. He was too powerful, definitely exceeding the godly Dharch realm. He was not his match. At this time, he was worried that an old drunkard would discover what was happening here. So, before he attacked, he used the Nether Realm Divine technique to seal the surroundings, isolating all auras. I will break through soon and enter the Quasi-Saint realm. At that time, I will naturally kill him, he said coldly. Then, he directly attacked. A godly Dharch realm palm reached out, covering the sky and grabbing toward Lin Tian. He wanted to seize the World Seed in Lin Tian's body. After obtaining the World Seed, he could not take it for himself in the end. He had to present it to the Saint Emissary from the upper realm. However, before that, he could first comprehend the World Seed. It would benefit him greatly and be of great help to his cultivation in the future. Moreover, presenting the World Seed in the end would be considered a great contribution. The upper realm would also give him many benefits. Netherchi surrounded his palm, suppressing all directions. His aura was powerful, and he arrived in front of Lin Tian in an instant. This old guy is going to be very unlucky. Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue. That's right, Ziyu also said. Lin Tian did not say anything. He only looked at Wu Yi beside him. Right now, he really couldn't stop the God Emperor. He could only rely on Wu Yi. Wu Yi naturally understood what Lin Tian meant and nodded lightly. Looking at the Netherworld King in front of him, a faint light flashed in his eyes. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere as the space in front of him distorted. The God Emperor level palm imprint of the Netherworld King was instantly shattered into pieces. After that, he was sent flying by a formless energy. This, Bai Ziki, Fanningshiung, and the White Tiger were shocked. The White Tiger's eyes widened. Although they recognized Wu Yi and knew that Wu Yi was very strong, they didn't expect him to be so strong. Just a glance was enough to injure the Nether King, who was infinitely close to the Quasi-Sage realm, and send him flying. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Only a half-step Divine Emperor, really? The White Tiger gulped. Ji Yu, Shui Yi, and the others didn't look surprised because they had already seen Wu Yi's strength in the ancient tomb. It was so strong that it made their hearts tremble. Little Yi, the longer you stay in the half-step Divine Emperor realm, the more you can adapt to your own strength. You will be able to exert more strength. In the future, when you break through to a higher realm, your control over your strength will be perfect, Ziling said. Lin Tian naturally knew this. At this moment, he looked ahead and his gaze fell on the Netherworld King. Today, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave. You will have to sleep here forever, he said. The Netherworld King steadied himself in the distance. He stared at Lin Tian in shock and anger. Then, he looked at Wu Yi who was beside Lin Tian. Half-step Divine Emperor you actually. He still remembered Wu Yi. He had seen him in the Extreming Temple, but he didn't expect Wu Yi to be so strong that he could hurt him, a peak Divine Emperor, with a half-step Divine Emperor realm cultivation. Looking at Wu Yi, he couldn't believe it. In the next moment, his expression changed. You caused the earthquake more than 1,000 years ago? At this moment, he remembered something else. More than 1,000 years ago, the heavens and myriad worlds were shaken. There was an extremely terrifying aura that swept across all directions, making everyone's heart palpitate. At this moment, seeing Wu Yi here and feeling the aura that Wu Yi released, his heart suddenly trembled. That aura was very similar to the pressure of that earthquake. Seeing this, he couldn't help but tremble. Then, without saying a word, he turned and left. That aura really scared a lot of people. Seeing the Netherworld King flee, Lin Tian couldn't help but murmur to himself. More than 1,000 years ago, in a remote world, he lost all his cultivation and was humiliated by an airborne realm female snake demon. At that time, he saw Wu Yi's emotions fluctuate violently for the first time. He felt that Wu Yi was angry at that time. At that time, Wu Yi's aura was really too terrifying. He still remembered it clearly. Therefore, he was very sure that even if Wu Yi was only a half-step divine emperor now, he could easily suppress a quasi-saint. At this time, seeing the Netherworld King escape, he didn't care at all. Because Wu Yi controlled the space divine law. Wherever his gaze passed, space was the strongest saint weapon. The Netherworld King couldn't escape. In fact, this was indeed the case. Wu Yi didn't make a move. He just looked ahead. In the direction that the Netherworld King escaped, the void was distorted, forming a natural cage of heaven and earth, cutting off his escape route. Moreover, after that, it didn't end. The power of space was compressed inwards. Immediately, the Netherworld King let out a muffled groan. His God-Emperor-level body trembled violently, as if he was enduring the suppression of the power of space. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Open! He was shocked and angry. He used all his divine techniques, but it was useless. He couldn't stop the power of the space divine law. I told you that this old guy was going to be bloody unlucky. He rushed over to die. Wishing Crocodile mocked him. Boom! The Netherworld King roared angrily. The Netherworld light was monstrous. There was already a faint saint-level fluctuation, but he still couldn't break open the power of space. Damn it! You forced me to do this! He roared. In the next moment, an incomparably blazing light bloomed from his body. He directly began to burn his life source. The Netherworld light immediately flourished, almost drowning all directions. Then, in the next moment, a door of light appeared behind him. An extremely shocking divine aura surged out. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian was immediately moved. He was too familiar with this scene. Back then, the King of Chaos had done the same thing. He was burning his life source and using some special method as a sacrifice to summon the sacred emissary from the Void Realm. At the same time, Wishing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu were also moved. They had seen the King of Chaos do this before. They still remembered it. Boom! Behind the Netherworld King, light intertwined, blazing and resplendent. Then, in the next moment, a figure with 12 wings on his back stepped out. His eyes were cold and deep. He is indeed summoning that person! Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. At this moment, the 12-winged sacred emissary appeared. His body was surrounded by divine light, and there was a domineering aura that he wasn't familiar with. It pushed away the power of space that was suppressing the Netherworld King. Sacred aura! In the beginning, he didn't know what this aura was. However, after learning about the Divine Emperor from Xianhuang, he naturally understood. This domineering aura that he wasn't familiar with before was the fluctuation unique to saint-level experts. It was the sacred aura. P.S. Recently, many readers have been asking the dragon about Lin Tian's nameless path. Why hasn't Lin Tian comprehended his own nameless path after reaching the Divine Emperor realm? What kind of path is this? How powerful is it? Chapter 1957. The 12-winged saint emissary stepped out from the light gate. His saint aura intertwined and his eyes were as deep as the Milky Way. When this person appeared, Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Lin Shi, Yen Ye, and the others who had never seen this person before all revealed shocked expressions. They could naturally sense how terrifying the other party's aura was, extremely horrifying. He has surpassed the Emperor God realm! A quasi-saint, a saint king, or a saint venerable? Or even a higher level? Bai Qiu was shocked. Not long ago, Lin Tian had returned to the Ten Heavens domain and told them many things. She naturally knew about the division of cultivation levels and the essentials of cultivation after the Emperor God realm. Lin Tian looked at the other party and sensed the other party's aura. He could roughly tell that this time around, it was still just a clone and not the other party's actual body. My lord. Nether King spoke with respect. He looked at Lin Tian and said to the 12-winged saint emissary, I wanted to take the world seed from him and present it to you, but... He looked at Wu Yi who was beside Lin Tian and said, This human girl is too strange. I can't defeat her, so I can only ask you to do it yourself. Wu Yi's cultivation was only at the half-step Divine Emperor realm, but she could easily suppress him, a peak Divine Emperor. This was really unusual. The only word he could think of to describe it was strange. The 12-winged saint emissary was a middle-aged man. His eyes were extremely deep. As soon as he appeared, his gaze fell on Lin Tian. Worm! His voice was cold and bone-chilling. More than 1,000 years ago, in the chaotic world, he suffered a great loss at the hands of Lin Tian. Lin Tian used the reincarnation material that he brought out from the reincarnation crevice to destroy one of his clones. He still remembered it. At this time, he didn't care about Wu Yi that the Nether King mentioned. He only stared coldly at Lin Tian, and then directly attacked. He didn't get close to Lin Tian, but from a certain distance, he released a powerful holy light and divine radiance, which pressed down on Lin Tian. That was because he wasn't sure if Lin Tian still had the reincarnation substance from back then. If he did, he would probably suffer the same fate as last time. However, if they were to attack from a certain distance, then there would be no problem. At such a distance, even if Lin Tian still had the reincarnation substance, it would be useless. Lin Tian would not be able to hit him, and would not be of any threat. The holy light surged. It wasn't fast, but its aura was intimidating. Such an aura was far from what Emperor God experts could compare to. Can you solve it, Wu Yi? Lin Tian asked Wu Yi. Beside them, Ji Yu, Lin Shi, and the others also looked at Wu Yi. In such a situation, they could only rely on Wu Yi. Wu Yi nodded. He didn't say anything, but there was a glimmer in his eyes. In front of him, the space distorted and produced a buzzing sound. A silver spatial blade slashed across, and in the blink of an eye, it shattered the holy light unleashed by the 12-winged sacred emissary. Such a scene shocked the group. Although they knew that Wu Yi was very strong, they were still shocked by this scene. After all, the 12-winged sacred emissary was very terrifying. So strong! The white tiger's eyes widened. Even Lin Tian couldn't help but be moved. The holy light unleashed by the 12-winged sacred emissary was shattered so easily. At the same time, opposite him, the Nether King's expression changed. He knew how strong the sacred emissary he summoned was. It was at the saint level. Although it was only a clone that descended, and its battle power was not even 1,000th of the original, it was still very terrifying. It could suppress a quasi-saint. However, the holy light he unleashed was shattered by Wu Yi's gaze. He couldn't believe it. The 12-winged sacred emissary was also moved. At this moment, his gaze fell on Wu Yi, and his eyes narrowed. A half-step divine emperor can block my attack? This is indeed strange. As he spoke, he looked at Wu Yi. His eyes were cold, and an even stronger holy light gushed out. He raised his right hand slightly, and a holy light celestial river appeared, pressing down on Wu Yi mightily. You're a lowly ant from the lower world. You're actually able to unleash a battle power that far exceeds your cultivation. Clang! The sound of a sword rang out. Wu Yi was very calm. Wherever he looked, the space distorted, and a silver-white sword appeared. It directly interrupted the 12-winged sacred emissary's words and chopped off his raised right hand. Blood floated in the air, and it was very eye-catching. In an instant, Gu and the others' expressions changed again. Just now, the 12-winged sacred emissary had already raised his hand. It was obvious that he was serious. His holy aura was obviously dozens of times stronger than before. However, in the end, he was still injured by Wu Yi. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Wu Yi didn't even move an inch. Even if I can't unleash my full strength with my cultivation as a half-step divine emperor, I think I can at least fight with a full-strength saint, Lin Tian muttered to himself. His eyes shone brightly. Boom! Holy light surged, and she billowed. The 12-winged sacred emissary's eyes were extremely cold. His holy aura was 100 times stronger than before. He was a saint. Although he came here with a clone, his battle strength was still terrifying enough. He was almost invincible among those below the saint level. However, now that his arm was chopped off by a half-step divine emperor, his killing intent surged. He looked at Wu Yi and said coldly, "You won." The space distorted again, interrupting his words. For the first time, Wu Yi moved. He raised his right hand, and silver-white light surrounded him. Silver-white chains suddenly appeared around the 12-winged sacred emissary like real dragons. Although they didn't have a terrifying aura, they made people's hearts tremble. In an instant, they trapped the 12-winged sacred emissary. Suddenly, the 12-winged sacred emissary's expression changed greatly. "These are divine chains of order? You can control the order." Whoosh! With a soft sound, his words were interrupted. His body collapsed and turned into dust. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. In an instant, the place became silent. This is really... The white tiger couldn't help but swallow his saliva. All the hair on his body stood on end. That terrifying 12-winged sacred emissary was so easily dealt with. Gu and the others were naturally shocked as well. They were really shocked by Wu Yi's strength. This was simply too frightening. Scary, scary! Wishing Crocodile sighed and couldn't help but laugh. Thinking about it, Lord Crocodile feels that the old guy with the 12 wings is too pitiful. The first time he descended with an avatar, it seemed that he was wiped out by Brat Lin's perverted master. He hated Brat Lin as well. The second time he descended with an avatar, it was killed by Brat Lin's reincarnation matter. This time, the third time he descended with an avatar, it was easily wiped out by Miss Wu Yi. Lord Crocodile can't help but want to cover his face. I think his original body in the heaven realm of void must be crying. Lin Tian listened to Wishing Crocodile's words. When he thought about it, he couldn't help but want to laugh too. Chapter 1958. The disappearance of the 12-winged divine emissary by Wu Yi shocked everyone. She was too powerful. At the same time, the Nether King's expression changed. He looked at Wu Yi in horror. Now, he didn't even have a trace of the majesty of a god emperor. He turned around and fled. Wu Yi! Lin Tian now called out. Beside him, Wu Yi nodded. She naturally understood what he meant. She glanced in the direction where the Nether King fled. The space fluctuated, and a silver-white chain of order appeared. It pierced through the Nether King's back and then disappeared. The Nether King's body trembled violently. Then, he disintegrated and turned into ashes. He didn't even have time to scream before his body and soul were destroyed. One of the ancient existences who forced Celestial Venerable Zhang Long and the others to reincarnate was... The 5 elements crocodile swallowed its saliva. Sister Wu Yi is so powerful. Jiyu smiled. Shui Yi, Bai Qiu, Sushu, and the others also spoke. Wu Yi smiled gently at them. Her expression was very gentle. Okay, let's go. Let's go back. Lin Tian spoke at this time. Bai Ziki and the others were safe. At this time, there was no need to stay in this world. Moreover, they came to this world and killed the ancient Nether King. It could be said that they got rid of a great enemy. Are we leaving now? What's the rush? The Nether King's bloodline seems to be our sworn enemy. Now that the Nether King is dead, with Princess Wu here, we can do whatever we want in this world. We can take all the cultivation resources of the Nether race. White Tiger's eyes lit up. There's no need, Lin Tian now said. The cultivation resources of this bloodline can't even compare to 1/10,000th of what we have. Previously, he had obtained too many rare treasures from the ancient tomb. Their combined value was far greater than all the cultivation resources of the Nether race and the other 6 races, which were known as the 6 strongest races below the celestial realm. He didn't care anymore. He simply explained this matter to White Tiger, Bai Ziki, and Fan Ningxiong, causing them to be shocked. Really? The White Tiger glared at him. Of course, why would I lie to you? Let's go. Lin Tian now. After that, they didn't stay in the underworld any longer. They left the world and returned to the 10 Directions Heaven domain. After returning to the 10 Directions Celestial domain, everyone went to the Immortal Court, including Wu Yi. Have you managed to deduce the whereabouts of the other old friends I mentioned before? I'll go look for them. After returning to the Immortal Court and resting for more than 2 hours, he asked Yen. Yes, I've found them all. Yen nodded with a smile and told Lin Tian the location of Ling Yun, the Black Flood Dragon, and Yang Qi. All right. Lin Tian nodded and said, Ruo Xian and I will look for the Black Flood Dragon, White Pig will look for Ling Yun, Stupid Crocodile and Hero will look for Yang Qi, Stupid Tiger will look for Little Fox and Yi Tong, the 2 of them are in the same place. All right, let's go, Wishing Crocodile said. On this day, they left the 10 Directions Heaven domain to search for Ling Yun and the others according to the information provided by Yen. Because of the coordinates given by Yen, it didn't take long for them to find Ling Yun, the Black Flood Dragon, and the others and return to the 10 Directions Heaven domain. Among them, Yang Qi had reached the early Divine King realm. He was as taciturn as ever, but he was very strong. Ling Yun, Yi Tong, and Little Fox were peak heavenly gods. Their essence, energy, and spirit were shocking. Few below the Divine King realm could compare to them. As for the Black Flood Dragon, its transformation was the greatest. Lin Tian found it in a great world that wasn't much smaller than the Immortal Realms. When he found it, it was in the nest of a true dragon. That place was filled with draconic qi, constantly nourishing its body, causing its black scales to turn violet. It had transformed into a dragon, its bloodline was extremely powerful, and there was even draconic might circulating around it. It's been 1,000 years. Today is a good day. In the Immortal Court, a group of friends and family were present. Lin Tian was very happy. All kinds of immortal wine and spirit fruits wafted in the air. It was very lively. Kid, you're already a divine emperor. Incredible! When Ling Yun heard about Lin Tian's current cultivation level, he was shocked, but then laughed loudly. Tonight, we're not going home until we're drunk. No one is allowed to use their cultivation bases to sober up, the Wishing Crocodile said. Of course, the White Tiger said. When have Lord Tiger ever been afraid of drinking? Back in the day, Lord Tiger was known as the Immortal Wine Immortal. Let's get this Lin brat drunk first. His cultivation base is the highest, Ling Yun said. That makes sense. Agreed, the Wishing Crocodile and the White Tiger said. Then Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, and the Black Flood Dragon all joined in. Come, Yang Qi said. You think I'm afraid of you? Lin Tian wasn't afraid at all. He wasn't interested in alcohol, but he could handle it. Even without relying on his cultivation base, few people could match up to him. Yeah! Even the little Taichu made a sound. It floated next to Lin Tian, hugging a wine jar that was bigger than itself. After many years, a group of old friends gathered together. The atmosphere was naturally very good. Wu Yi, Ji Yu, Sushu, and the other girls gathered together. There was a bonfire burning next to them, and the aroma of wine wafted over. Wu Yi was very quiet. She looked at Lin Tian, Bai Ziki, and the others drinking. Her eyes were gentle, and there was a glimmer of light in them. The violet fairy sat next to Wu Yi. Naturally, she saw Wu Yi's gaze on Lin Tian. She nudged Wu Yi with her elbow and said with a smile, "Little Yi, do you feel that Big Brother has a very special charm?" Wu Yi nodded. She didn't hide anything and said softly, "These people are gathered together because of him. Big Brother values his family and friends countless times more than himself. Everyone likes this kind of Big Brother." Lin, she said from the side. She looked at Lin Tian in front of her with admiration. She still remembered how Lin Tian protected her when they were very young. At that time, the siblings were weak. No matter how busy Lin Tian was, no matter where Lin Tian went or how far he went, the first thing he thought of was to ensure her safety. "When he was very weak, I was captured. He broke into the imperial city alone and didn't hesitate to become enemies with the entire imperial family. When he was very weak, he broke into the Bai family alone for me and my brother. He didn't care about himself at all." Ji Yu and Bai Chiudao looked at Lin Tian, who was drinking intensely with Bai Ziki and the others. Their eyes were very gentle. They didn't want to show off how good Lin Tian was to them. They were just touched by Lin Shi's words and thought of some things in the past. "Very good," Wu Yi said softly. A light smile appeared on her beautiful face. Because of this, the world seemed to lose its color. If it wasn't for Lin Tian, she wouldn't have lived until now. Back then, it was Lin Tian who didn't care about his own life and desperately transferred his reincarnation origin to her to balance the holy light origin and void origin in her body. This saved her life. "I'm very happy to be able to meet Big Brother. I feel very blessed," Violet Fairy said from the side. In the past, because of her cultivation method, she lost her memory and strength. To Lin Tian, she was just a stranger. However, Lin Tian still risked everything to protect her in the dark forest where monsters were everywhere. He protected her from the hands of some evil people. Back then, because of her tears, he almost lost himself. This made her feel both warm and heartache. He values love the most. He values love more than his own life, Sushu said softly. "Very good." Wu Yi smiled. It was still such a simple word, but the look in her eyes was gentler. Heaven and earth evolved into all things. The only thing that could make people truly close to each other was love. Chapter 1959. Love was very important. Love was more important than one's own life. Lin Tian was the embodiment of this. Wu Yi and the others gathered together and looked at Lin Tian in front of them with warm and gentle expressions. "Hey, Lin Tian, you're still not down?" The bonfire was burning, and the aroma of wine floated in the air. A group of people surrounded Lin Tian and tried to get him drunk. "Are you kidding me? Who do you think I am? You want to get me drunk? Impossible!" Lin Tian chuckled. He was very relaxed when he was with his friends and family. "So arrogant? Continue!" The white tiger roared. "Drink!" The whooshing crocodile roared. The group surrounded Lin Tian and tried to get him drunk. However, it was useless. In the end, the group gave up and began to exchange toasts with each other. "Master!" Yi Tong and Tu Xian walked over and proposed a toast to Lin Tian. Yi Tong was already a handsome man. He was very energetic, but his personality was very shy. Tu Xian was even more beautiful now. He had the charm and spirituality of the Heavenly Fox clan. He looked very likable. After the two of them proposed a toast to Lin Tian, Tu Xian glanced at Yi Tong. Master, it's..." Yi Tong naturally received Tu Xian's gaze. He looked at Lin Tian and wanted to say something. He kept scratching the back of his head. Then, he couldn't help but glance at Tu Xian. Lin Tian looked at him, and then looked at Tu Xian, who kept giving him meaningful looks. After a moment of confusion, his expression changed slightly. He couldn't help but guess something. "What?" "Say it." He smiled and said. Yi Tong still scratched his head. As she spoke, she stole a glance at Tu Xian. "Oh, you stinking brat, what are you being so shy for?" Aren't you just getting together with the little fox and wanting to tell your master to help you? Why are you hemming and hawing? The white tiger looked at him and couldn't help but speak up for him. Previously, when it went to find the two of them, it accidentally discovered this matter. Hearing its words, the surrounding people all revealed shocked expressions. Little Yi Zi, you're really something. You actually abducted your own junior sister. Whooshing Crocodile looked at Yi Tong and laughed. At this point, everyone else was also looking at Yi Tong and Tu Xianxian. Even Wu Yi was no exception. She had a gentle smile on her face. Yi Tong immediately blushed. Beside her, Tu Xianxian also blushed. Then, the two of them bowed to Lin Tian at the same time and said, Master, please grant us our wish. Over the years, the two of them had been outside together, preaching for Lin Tian and the Immortal Court. They had almost traveled the entire starry sky and passed through many great worlds. After being together for a long time, they naturally had feelings for each other. Get up! Lin Tian looked at his two outstanding disciples with a smile on his face. He gently lifted them up and said to Yi Tong, Treat your junior sister well in the future. His two disciples were both geniuses. He was naturally happy that the two of them could be together. When Yi Tong and Tu Xianxian heard Lin Tian's words, they obviously knew that Lin Tian had agreed. They immediately revealed happy expressions. Thank you, Master! The two of them said. As they spoke, the two of them glanced at each other, their faces slightly red. Senior brother Little Yi, senior sister Xianxian, congratulations! Ruoxian Lin jumped over and congratulated Yi Tong and Tu Xianxian. Thank you, Ruoxian. Yi Tong scratched the back of her head shyly again. Tu Xianxian held Ruoxian Lin's hand and said, On this day, the Immortal Court became even more lively because of the matter between Yi Tong and Tu Xianxian. The fragrance of wine and spiritual fruits floated in the depths of the Immortal Court for a long time. Then, in the blink of an eye, the next day came. Lin Tian took out all the pills, treasures, and ancient scriptures he had obtained from the ancient tomb and distributed them to Yi Tong, Tu Xianxian, White Tiger, and the others who had not reached the Divine King realm. He gave them some Baodan to increase their cultivation, allowing them to reach the Divine King realm in a short time. Then, he gave everyone one of the Divine Emperor weapons he had obtained from the ancient tomb. He also took out the sacred-level ancient scriptures and divine arts he had obtained from the ancient tomb for them to study together. In the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. Divine Emperor weapons! Most Divine Emperors don't have them. Now each of us has one, and there are still many left in the Immortal Court's treasury. There are also sacred-level ancient scriptures and divine arts. This is... White Tiger laughed madly and said excitedly, In the legendary heavenly world of nothingness, who can compare to us in terms of cultivation resources? Unbelievable! Ling Yun laughed heartily. In the past 6 months, he had reached the Divine King realm. Moreover, he had comprehended some saint-grade ancient scriptures and cultivated some saint-grade divine arts. His strength had undergone a tremendous change. Even though he was only at the early Divine King realm, he could definitely fight against a peak Divine King without relying on the Divine King weapon. Even the Kombai Ziki, Yang Qi, and the Black Jiao Dragon's eyes shone brightly after 6 months. They had been in the Divine King realm before, but after 6 months, with the help of the Baodan immortal herbs and sacred-level ancient scriptures and divine arts that Lin Tian had taken out, their souls had become stronger, and their essence, energy, and spirit had become more shocking. They had undergone a huge qualitative change. As for the remaining Baodan treasured weapons, I will take some back to the lower heaven domain. The rest will be stored in the Immortal Court's treasury. Black Dragon, you guys distribute them later. Let the disciples of the Immortal Court cultivate the sacred-level ancient scriptures and divine arts. Lin Tiandao, the Black Jiao Dragon, was the name that the Black Jiao Dragon had given to himself. He had mixed his black scales with his current true dragon bloodline to come up with this name. All right. Black Dragon and the others nodded. One day, Lin Tian left the Immortal Court with Wu Yi, Ji Yu, and the others, and returned to the lower heaven domain. His cultivation path started in the lower heaven domain. In the lower heaven domain, there were his elders, such as the people of the Burning Sun sect, Old General Ji, and the others. There were also his old friends, such as Xian Yao and the others in the first heaven. He took Wu Yi and the others to the lower heaven domain to visit his elders and former friends, leaving behind many immortal treasures. Especially the Burning Sun sect, this place was the most significant to him. Even though he founded the Immortal Court and has now reached the Divine Emperor realm, he never forgot that he was a disciple of the Burning Sun sect. This place was his other home. He stayed in the lower heaven domain for a long time, staying in the Burning Sun sect for a month before returning to the ninth heaven. Then, in the blink of an eye, another month passed. A month later, on this day, he called all his family and friends to his side. He was prepared to fuse the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg into the world seed on this day, allowing the world seed to truly blossom and bear fruit, evolving into a great world. Chapter 1960. Lin Tian called the group to his side. They were in the deepest part of the Immortal Court, surrounded by the 10-direction divine formation. It was very safe. A real macro world is about to evolve and open up. Lord Crocodile is looking forward to it, Wishing Crocodile said, his eyes shining brightly. Jiyu, Sushu, and the others were also looking at Lin Tian with bright eyes. Only Wu Yi stood a little further away. The evolution of the world seed and the opening of a new world would not be of much use to her. After all, although her cultivation was only at the half-step Divine Emperor realm, her real strength was already amazing. She stood in the distance, guarding Lin Tian. "I'm going to start." Lin Tian asked the group to get ready, then spoke. He nodded to Wu Yi, then sat down cross-legged. He activated the Heart Sutra of Sunday immediately. A faint golden divine light intertwined on the surface of his body. After a few breaths, he adjusted his essence, qi, and spirit to the peak. Immediately, he activated the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg in his body at the same time. The yin-yang silk intertwined with the primordial yin-yang qi, and the 5 elements egg intertwined with the primordial 5 elements qi. He slowly refined the two into the world seed. Immediately, the seed of time trembled. As the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg were refined, an even more primitive and vast aura began to flow out. Moreover, this aura gradually began to become stronger and more vast. At the same time, in the Immortal Emperor Pagoda, the yin-yang source qi, which he had collected in the ancient tomb, began to boil. The pure energy entangled with the destructive aura was separated by the special aura of the world seed at this time. Strands of it intertwined from the Immortal Emperor Pagoda. As the pure energy intertwined, he immediately felt it and circulated the Sun Heart Sutra even faster. He absorbed the pure energy to cultivate, causing his essence, energy, and spirit to rise strand by strand. His cultivation also increased along with it. At the same time, the yin-yang silk and the 5 elements egg were naturally refined into the world seed. The primordial aura of the world seed became more and more vast. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. 3 months later, the yin-yang silk and elemental egg were completely refined into the world seed. At this moment, the world seed released its most dazzling light, causing Lin Tian's body to tremble involuntarily. As soon as the light appeared, it illuminated every inch of his flesh and meridians, causing them to become stronger. At the same time, his nameless Tao began to move. Strands of Tao light circled around and intertwined around the world seed. This Tao light completely enveloped the world seed, as if it had a mind of its own to control and guide it. Crack! A moment later, a crisp sound rang out, as if a piece of ceramic shattered. Many cracks appeared on the world seed. More and more cracks appeared, and from within them, a vast and boundless aura spread out. This type of vast and boundless aura surged. In the next moment, the world seed disappeared and collapsed, turning into a large expanse of light mist. World phantoms appeared, floating within his body. Then, they passed through his body and floated out, enveloping him completely. At this moment, his body was sitting cross-legged in the shadow of the world, as if he was the center of this world. Then, the shadow of the world began to spread, mixed with a vast and unparalleled primordial aura, enveloping Bai Chiu, Jiyu, and the others nearby. Then, the shadow of the world began to solidify, turning into a world of light that surrounded the world. The primordial aura surged. Inside, the light mist was hazy, and nothing could be seen. This is the world evolved from the world seed. Why is there nothing here, not even a rock? The white tiger was puzzled. Beside him, the others were also puzzled. When the world first opened, every blade of grass and flower, every tree and stone, every mountain and water, they all needed a long time to slowly develop. Wu stood not far away and said softly. She was obviously trying to clear up the confusion of the group, causing them to immediately understand. Buzz! The great world evolved from the world seed, with Lin Tian as the center, trembled slightly at this moment, and various primordial auras surged out. Primordial chaos chi, primordial yin-yang chi, primordial five elements chi, and primordial xianhuang chi, as well as some other extremely shocking aura fluctuations, causing Wishing Crocodile and the others to involuntarily tremble, and all of them revealed shocked expressions. At this moment, as the world seed evolved and the world first opened, various primordial auras intertwined around it, causing the blood in their bodies to begin to boil, and the Tao in their bodies began to tremble. Their flesh, blood, and divine souls began to passively accept the baptism and tempering, rapidly becoming stronger. Moreover, at the same time, most of the problems that they usually found difficult to understand in their cultivation suddenly became clear in the blink of an eye, and all of them were endlessly enlightened at this moment. Everyone, comprehend and cultivate seriously, the Violet Fairy said in a low voice. When the world first opened, they were surrounded by the primordial aura of this great world, and all of them began to benefit from it. Order, I seem to understand a little, Ruo Xianlin muttered to herself. She had once stayed at the early godly king realm for 1,000 years to comprehend order. Even with her astonishing talent for cultivation, she had not gained anything. However, at this moment, surrounded by the primordial aura of the world, she had comprehended something. At the same time, Bai Ziki, Lingyun, Fanningshiun, and the others also benefited from different things at this moment. Buzz! With Lin Tian as the center, the great world spread out horizontally, enveloping an area of about 100 feet in radius. It was hazy inside, and its aura was vast. He closed his eyes slightly, and the world seed evolved into a great world. When the world first opened, various types of energy intertwined within his body. The nameless path trembled, and the pure energy from the yin-yang source chi from the immortal Emperor Pagoda flowed to every corner of his body, causing his strength in all aspects to rise at an astonishing rate. Just like this, a full 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. 6 months later, the aura in his body surged, and an astonishing divine might spread. His cultivation had forced his way into the middle godly emperor realm. The great world that the world seed had evolved into was all around him, intertwined with all sorts of primordial aura. There was still nothing inside. It was hazy and turbid, and nothing could be seen. The only thing that could be felt was an awe-inspiring vastness and vastness. In his body, the nameless light of the way circled around the great world, and the aura it exuded was even more vast than that of the world seed. 2 different kinds of vastness spread out. The nameless path seemed to be the master of all things. It led the primordial aura of the great world to flow within Lin Tian's body, flowing through different parts of Lin Tian's body. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. 1 month later, on this day, the great world that the world seed had evolved into gradually stabilized, and so did the nameless path. Then, Lin Tian's body trembled slightly. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura spread out from his body. Vaguely, a terrifying sound came from his body, as if billions of gods and demons were roaring, shaking the world. Chapter 1961. 9 black moons revolved around his eyes, mysterious and demonic. This place shook the entire immortal court. In the sky, the endless clouds stopped moving as a substantial fate condensed. This is Jiyu, Bai Qiu, and the others were immediately awakened by this aura. They looked at Lin Tian and saw Lin Tian's eyes. Their expressions changed. Facing this pair of eyes, they felt a sharp pain in their souls. Delusion breaker divine eyes? No! It's obviously not. This pair of eyes are. The scales on the 5 elements crocodile's body couldn't help but stand up. It was frightened by Lin Tian's mysterious eyes. Those eyes were too deep. They were like 2 bottomless black holes that could devour everything. The violet fairy's complexion also changed. This wasn't the first time she had seen these eyes. When she was with the Fae, Lin Tian had fallen into a demonic state because of her. At that time, these eyes had also manifested. Lin Tian, who had given birth to these divine eyes, had been far too terrifying. At the same time, not far away, Wu Yi's eyes glimmered. He looked at Lin Tian without blinking. Father! Ruoxian was also moved. At this time, looking at Lin Tian's eyes made her heart palpitate. This palpitating feeling was so strong that she did not dare to get close to her biological father. Beside Lin Tian, a strong wind blew. 9 black moons revolved around his eyes. It was as if a real god had descended. At this time, his expression changed slightly. For the second time, this pair of divine eyes appeared. He had preserved his complete self and consciousness. At this time, he felt that the whole world had become countless times brighter and clearer. Then, he felt as if he could do anything. He raised his head and swept his gaze over Jiyu and the others. At this moment, he could actually clearly see the weak breathing of each of their pores. In fact, he could even clearly see the flow of divine energy in their bodies. In the end, his gaze landed on Wu Yi's body. The divine power in Wu Yi's body did not fluctuate at all, completely calm. However, that kind of richness shocked him. It was like a heavenly river, as if the entire world could not fill it. These eyes are not bad, Wu Yi said with a gentle smile. Lin Tian looked at her. He paused for a moment, then closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the world around him became even clearer. He looked at Wu Yi, then his gaze moved from Jiyu and the others to Wu Yi. I'm going to do something, he said to Wu Yi. Then, he took a step out from the depths of the celestial court and disappeared without a trace. In almost an instant, he left the 10 directions celestial domain and appeared in a vast great world. As far as the eye could see, this great world was extremely majestic. It was even more majestic than the chaotic world. The celestial spiritual chi here was much denser than the celestial region. He appeared in this world, took a simple step, and then instantly appeared in another place. He arrived in the sky above an incomparably vast divine city, causing all the cultivators in the city to involuntarily stop in their tracks. They were all moved. A human? A human dares to appear in the world of our mysterious ancient clan? How dare you intrude into our new holy city? You're courting death! In the divine city, a group of cultivators shouted angrily. Then, some people attacked. Unparalleled divine power pressed down on Lin Tian. Moreover, some people stepped into the sky and directly grabbed at Lin Tian. Divine Tao laws appeared. Lin Tian stood in the sky, ignoring the attacks of the cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan. His gaze landed on the divine tower at the center of the divine city. Without any fancy movements, he raised his hand and punched. A straight fist light blasted out. Boom! In just an instant, the fist light landed on the divine pagoda, shattering the divine pagoda in an instant. At the same time, the killing light that the cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan had thrown at him was shattered by the fist light. A group of cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan who were trying to grab him exploded on the spot. Then, the entire divine city was torn apart and turned into ruins. Ah! This was the new divine city of the mysterious ancient macro world. At this moment, screams could be heard from every corner of the city. Most of the cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan in the new divine city had died tragically. Some of them were lucky enough to survive, but they were all seriously injured by the destructive fist light. It was also at this time that 5 whooshing sounds could be heard as 5 figures rushed out from the broken divine pagoda. "Who are you?" the leader of the group asked. He was surrounded by powerful emperor light. However, it was very chaotic and he looked a little embarrassed. At the same time, the other 4 people beside him looked even more embarrassed as they looked around. Then, they saw Lin Tian. The leader's face changed immediately. "It's you!" This person was wearing a golden robe. He was surrounded by divine light and his essence, qi, and spirit were very strong. He was the master of the mysterious ancient macro world, the Grand Supreme. The Grand Supreme naturally recognized Lin Tian. They had seen each other several times. Moreover, the world seed was in Lin Tian's possession. He looked at Lin Tian coldly. He even forgot about the destruction of the divine tower and divine city. He only remembered the world seed in Lin Tian's possession. "Plant the world seed, swoosh!" The sound of something breaking through the air interrupted him. Lin Tian disappeared silently from where he was as if he had teleported. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the Grand Supreme. His speed shocked the Grand Supreme. "You bang!" Lin Tian threw a punch at the Grand Supreme's abdomen. The Grand Supreme groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away. "My lord!" The other 4 people beside the Grand Supreme were shocked. The strongest cultivator of their clan had been sent flying by a human with a single punch. Suppress him. The 4 of them were the 4 protectors of the Grand Supreme. Their cultivations were at the early stage God-Emperor realm. When they opened their mouths, they immediately brought out their boundless divine might and grabbed at Lin Tian. For a moment, God-Emperor realm suppression pressed down on Lin Tian from 4 different directions, directly locking down the void. Lin Tian's eyes revolved with 9 black moons. He did not even look at the 4 of them. His gaze landed on the Grand Supreme who was sent flying. He took a step forward and approached the Grand Supreme once again. As he took a step forward, the chi of heaven and earth around him surged and materialized. It instantly shattered all the divine power of the 4 people and sent them flying. Before they could even stabilize themselves, their God-Emperor physical bodies exploded at the same time. The next moment, he appeared in front of the Grand Supreme. Without any fancy moves, he simply threw a punch. The Grand Supreme had just stabilized his body when Lin Tian closed in on him. His expression changed again as he revealed a shocked and furious expression. "You bang!" This punch landed firmly on the Grand Supreme's abdomen and sent him flying again. This time, he was sent flying more than 3 million feet away. Droplets of blood floated in the air. It was a ghastly sight. "You will die today." Chapter 1962. After more than 1,000 years, Lin Tian's divine eyes reappeared. His abilities had undergone an earth-shattering change. Just like Wu Yi, it was not proportional to his cultivation at all. It was as if he had the power to kill a saint in an instant. His speed was very fast, much faster than that of an emperor god. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Grand Supreme, who had been sent flying. This time, Grand Supreme had steadied himself very early. Seeing Lin Tian closing in, divine power surged all over his body. Endless divine light appeared behind him. Every ray of divine light was enough to easily crush an ordinary emperor god. It pressed straight toward Lin Tian. For a moment, there was a rumbling sound. His divine power was like a vast ocean, instantly enveloping the surroundings. Under such divine power, the surrounding voids were annihilated. They could not withstand the power of a peak emperor god. Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. He faced this overwhelming divine power and did not dodge. There was a faint, pure white light on the surface of his body, and he passed through this overwhelming divine power. In an instant, he appeared before Taishang and threw out a simple punch. "You're just a divine emperor. How can you break through my divine power of slaughter?" Grand Supreme could not believe it. At the same time, he also threw a punch. With the divine power of a peak emperor god, he met Lin Tian's fist head-on. In the blink of an eye, their fists collided with each other. A shockingly transparent wave of light burst out, shattering the nearby void and creating many terrifying cracks in the void. Both of them retreated at the same time. They only stopped after retreating dozens of steps. Lin Tian's expression did not change. 9 black moons revolved around his eyes, giving people a feeling of suppression. Grand Supreme steadied himself and looked at Lin Tian. He was shocked, angry, and confused. He was just a divine emperor. He could not do anything to him. Then, in the next moment, his gaze was fixed on Lin Tian's eyes, and he was immediately moved. Your eyes. From the beginning, he was only concerned about the world seed on Lin Tian, to being sent flying by Lin Tian several times, and to the collision of their fists just now. He didn't have the time to carefully observe Lin Tian. Only now did he discover that Lin Tian's eyes were completely different from before. These eyes made his spirit, who was infinitely close to the quasi-saint realm, tremble. Lin Tian's gaze fell on the Grand Supreme. At this time, he was in the higher void, and his expression was indifferent. And the Grand Supreme's face turned cold. Lin Tian's gaze made him very uncomfortable. It was as if he was looking down at a bug. He had lived for countless years and was infinitely close to the level of quasi-saint. But now, he was actually being looked down upon by a divine Emperor Jr. I'll kill you! Looking at Lin Tian, his voice was cold. He directly moved, controlling his peak divine Emperor aura to kill Lin Tian. Lin Tian stood in the sky with an indifferent expression. In his eyes, the 9 black moons trembled slightly. Buzz! The void in all directions shook. In front of him, beside the Grand Supreme, who was rushing over, a pure white vortex appeared. There was no destructive aura, only boundless vastness, as if it could devour all things. The Grand Supreme trembled violently. His body, which was rushing toward Lin Tian, suddenly stopped. His expression changed greatly as he recognized this power. Fate? You! Fate, the most illusory fate in the world, actually materialized at this time. Moreover, it was obviously summoned by Lin Tian. This shocked him. How could a divine Emperor Lin Tian summon the power of fate? Also at this time, the fate vortex rotated and shook, sweeping everything around, swallowing heaven and earth. The Grand Supreme was shocked and quickly retreated. Even though he was infinitely close to the quasi-saint realm, he didn't dare to collide with fate. Moreover, this was a materialized fate. With his divine Emperor aura, he could clearly sense a great threat. He was very fast and retreated far away in the blink of an eye. In the sky, Lin Tian's expression didn't change. He was still indifferent. The 9 black moons in his eyes trembled slightly. As he glanced over, the fate in the world surged. Suddenly, a new fate vortex formed, and there were 9 of them. The 9 fate vortexes surrounded the Grand Supreme. Even though the Grand Supreme was extremely fast, he was still brushed by one of the vortexes. Immediately, with a poof, glaring divine Emperor blood swept across the void. More than half of the Grand Supreme's body was directly crushed. Damn it! The Grand Supreme was shocked and furious. The remaining half of his body was bleeding. He quickly moved hundreds of feet away, quickly recovering his body. However, Lin Tian didn't give him the slightest chance. The black moons in his eyes trembled slightly, and a long river of fate appeared. It crossed the sky and directly fell on the Grand Supreme's body, crushing the remaining half of his body along with it. However, as an ancient existence infinitely close to the quasi-saint realm, the Grand Supreme was naturally very powerful. He wasn't crushed to death by fate. In the blink of an eye, he reformed his body and looked at Lin Tian in shock and anger. Let's see how many times you can reform. Every time you reform, I'll crush you, Lin Tian said coldly. Back then, the Grand Supreme burned one of his incarnations to sneak attack Wu Yi. He was vicious and wanted to imprison Wu Yi in the emptiness domain forever. Therefore, when this pair of divine eyes appeared again, he immediately came here to settle the score with the Grand Supreme. He had made up his mind to kill the Grand Supreme today. His gaze fell on the Grand Supreme. The 9 black moons in his eyes spun, and an even more shocking power of fate appeared. With a rumble, there wasn't any terrifying fluctuation in the power of fate, but it was very frightening. The entire mystic ancient great world shook because of it. A wave of fate evolved, covering the sky and the sun. It pressed down on the Grand Supreme mightily. The Grand Supreme was shocked and immediately flew away. At the same time, he used his divine power infinitely close to the quasi-saint realm to cast a powerful divine skill to meet it. Swish! A soft sound was heard. The wave of fate pressed down, directly annihilating the divine power that the Grand Supreme had cast. Then, the momentum of the wave of fate didn't change at all. It continued to press down. The Grand Supreme growled and cast one powerful divine skill after another. He retreated while bombarding the incoming fate. However, fate was too terrifying. Once the most illusory power in the world condensed, it was really unstoppable. Although it didn't manifest any terrifying destructive aura, it could destroy everything and crush everything in front of it. In the end, the wave of fate pressed down on the Grand Supreme and drowned him directly. Poof! Bloody mist exploded. The Grand Supreme let out a muffled groan and was crushed into pieces again. However, the Grand Supreme still didn't die this time. He reformed his physical body again and looked at Lin Tian with even more shock and anger. He was the dignified Grand Supreme, the king of the mystic ancient clan, infinitely close to the quasi-saint realm, but now he was seriously injured by a junior in the divine emperor realm again and again. The other party had mobilized the power of fate to fight. Lin Tian's gaze fell on the Grand Supreme. Without any ripples, he stepped over coldly. Boom! Chapter 1963. The fist light that was mixed with karmic lux surged violently, and everywhere it passed, everything was destroyed. Moreover, as the fist passed by, more fate surged out. The entire area was almost completely shrouded by fate. However, the fate wasn't the one that brought good luck. It was summoned by Lin Tian to destroy everything. Destroy! Grand Supreme roared and used an Emperor God level technique to counter the attack. However, the Emperor God level great skill that he unleashed couldn't block the fate at all. When it collided with Lin Tian's fate fist light, it instantly collapsed. Poof! The fist radiance rushed over and pierced through Grand Supreme's chest, leaving a bloody hole. Bright red blood splattered in the void. Taishang was shocked and furious. He stared at Lin Tian coldly, but he did not stop. He turned around and fled into the distance. You can't escape, Lin Tianling said coldly. He took a step forward and instantly appeared behind Grand Supreme, punching him. And? Grand Supreme's eyes were cold and ruthless. He faced Lin Tian's fist head-on. He couldn't dodge and had to face it head-on. With a rumble, he mobilized his power that was infinitely close to the Saint Realm. A peak Emperor weapon emerged, intertwining with countless divine runes. Each divine rune was branded on the weapon after being tempered thousands of times. Its aura was terrifying. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He raised his hand and the fate around him surged. His fist aura became even stronger. With a rumble, the two of them collided. All kinds of divine light scattered in all directions. At the same time, in the distance, the 4 protectors of the Grand Supreme who had been shattered by the power of Providence reappeared. When they saw this, their expressions changed drastically. This, our Lord, is actually being suppressed? That human can mobilize the power of fate power? The 4 of them were shocked. At the same time, in the dilapidated divine city, some experts of the mysterious ancient clan who were still alive saw this scene. Many of them couldn't help but tremble. Boom! Divine power swept out. Lin Tian controlled the fate power and fought with Grand Supreme. Again and again, Grand Supreme was sent flying. Suppress! Grand Supreme roared and activated his Emperor weapon to the limit. It pressed down on Lin Tian like a real sun. The destructive aura was extremely strong, as if it was going to crush everything. Lin Tian's expression was cold, and the 9 black moons in his eyes trembled slightly. Even more fate energy gathered on his body. He punched out, and with the surging fate energy, he combined it with the Chaos Monarch fist. Fate and divine arts fused together. A boom could be heard as the fist rumbled out, and the sky collapsed. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Crack! With a crisp sound, the powerful punch directly smashed the highest Supreme's Emperor weapon into pieces. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Taishang as if he had teleported and threw out 3 punches at an extremely fast speed. Bang! Taishang was sent flying. Half of his body exploded, and he was in a miserable state. His expression was still cold without any change. He took a step forward and pressed toward Taishang again. Fate power surrounded him. He punched continuously. Dense fist shadows of fate power swept out and destroyed everything. Grand Supreme was immediately drowned by the fist shadows of fate power. He couldn't block them at all and was smashed into pieces. However, his divine soul was still immortal and very powerful. He let out an angry roar and quickly reformed his body. Lin Tian stepped forward. Fate power surrounded him. He didn't give Grand Supreme any chance and pressed forward again. Protect the Lord! In the distance, Grand Supreme's 4 protectors rushed over. They all used their strongest divine skill and attacked Lin Tian from different angles. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. 9 black moons spun in his eyes, mysterious and demonic. Providence vortexes appeared beside the 4 great protectors, simultaneously suppressing the divine might that the 4 of them had unleashed. Then, they directly swept the 4 of them into the vortexes. Ah! Dazzling blood sputtered. Miserable screams were heard. The 4 protectors were very strong. They were at the early stage God-Emperor realm, but they couldn't resist the fate vortexes. They were all swallowed in an instant. Even their divine souls couldn't escape. Lord protectors, dead! The cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan in the dilapidated divine city trembled. The 4 protectors of their clan were all at the early stage God-Emperor realm. They were extremely powerful. But now, their bodies and souls were destroyed in an instant. Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. His gaze landed on Taishang, who had already regathered his physical body. This time, he also performed the yin-yang steps and pressed forward again. In an instant, he arrived in front of Grand Supreme. His fist light landed on Grand Supreme's abdomen. With a pu, Grand Supreme was smashed into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. Goyalu! The sound of flesh wriggling was heard. Grand Supreme's divine soul wasn't destroyed. His fleshly body reformed again. Lin Tian wasn't surprised. Grand Supreme wasn't weak. Even if he used his mysterious eyes to mobilize the power of fate, he couldn't easily destroy Grand Supreme. After all, his control of this pair of special divine eyes wasn't perfect. His control of fate was even worse. He could clearly feel that he couldn't even release a drop of the power of this pair of divine eyes and the fate of heaven and earth. Moreover, his current cultivation couldn't support the complete divine eyes and fate. He stepped forward. Fate surged and attacked again. With a rumble, divine energy surged, and providence filled the sky. The Grand Supreme was injured again and again, and he was constantly sent flying. Enough! After being injured again and again, Grand Supreme's aura had weakened too much. He let out an extremely cold roar. Staring at Lin Tian, his eyes were filled with shocking killing intent. "And you forced me to do this!" As soon as he finished speaking, a rumble resounded, and the aura on his body suddenly started to rise explosively. It was like a volcano had erupted, and it charged to an extremely high point time and time again. Strands of oppressive and scorching divine might were produced, and it even melted a large expanse of space. This aura was overbearing and kept rising. In just a few breaths, it reached an astonishing height. Then, saintly might intertwined from his body. "You force me to enter the quasi-saint realm in advance. I'll kill you!" he said coldly. His saintly power intertwined as if he was reborn. His entire body was surrounded by saintly light, pushing the saintly waves toward Lin Tian. He had been at the end of the Emperor God realm for a long time. More than 700 years ago, he could already enter the quasi-saint realm. However, in order to make his quasi-saint realm fruit stable and powerful enough, he had been continuing to accumulate at the end of the Emperor God realm. In these 700 years, he had refined many divine medicines. But now, the fate that Lin Tian had mobilized was too strong. With his current Emperor God power, he couldn't withstand it at all. He had to give up on accumulating at the end of the Emperor God realm. He could only choose to enter the quasi-saint realm. Chapter 1964. Saintly might intertwined around the Taishang like rolling waves. The power he manifested was like a completely different person from before. The rolling saintly waves were like the light of destruction, pressing toward Lin Tian. Facing this saintly light, Lin Tian felt threatened, but his expression did not change at all as he retreated. "You will die today, unless a saint comes," he said coldly. The next moment, he retreated more than 100 feet. In his eyes, the 9 black moons spun at an extremely fast speed. Suddenly, the surging fate between heaven and earth became more and more concentrated. A long river of fate was summoned by him. It stretched across the sky, exuding an unparalleled vastness that shook the entire Xuangu Great World. Countless creatures in the entire Xuangu Great World were shocked by this aura, and they all trembled with fear. At the same time, in this world, in the Xianhuang Valley, a pair of extremely deep eyes opened and looked toward the divine city. "I was wrong." This human, looking in the direction of the divine city, this living fossil that had lived for countless years was moved, and his eyes were filled with shock. Across an endless distance, this living fossil saw Lin Tian's eyes at this moment, and saw the surging fate that Lin Tian had mobilized. Its originally deep eyes became even deeper. "Cultivated to the extreme, it's not much worse than the eye technique of the human king," it muttered to itself. "Can catch up to the human king?" Boom! Where Xuangu divine city was, saintly might surged, and fate intertwined. The space in all directions was crushed inch by inch. Taishang was shocked and furious. Saintly light surrounded the divine city. He did not expect Lin Tian to be able to mobilize even stronger fate. Then, in the next moment, his eyes became cold again, and killing intent surged. "Your fate is very strong, but your cultivation can't support this power for long. You won't be able to exert much power. Under the saintly light, you will die in the end." With a boom, the saintly light outside his body became even more blazing, surging, and was about 10 times stronger. "Kill!" he shouted coldly as he controlled his monstrous saint chi. It pressed down on Lin Tian, as if it was going to destroy everything. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. 9 black moons spun in his eyes. The river of fate rolled and pressed against the holy light of the Taishang. As the two collided, the space around them was continuously destroyed, and it took a long time for it to recover. During this process, the already dilapidated mysterious ancient divine city became even more dilapidated. All the cultivators of the mysterious ancient clan in the city were killed one after another. They didn't even have time to scream before they disappeared completely from the world. In response, Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. His gaze only fell on the Grand Supreme, and the light of Providence rolled over. At this time, the Grand Supreme had charged into the quasi-saint realm and fought with his saint power. He regained his former domineering attitude. "You're just a god emperor. Let's see how long you can last," he said coldly. At this time, Lin Tian mobilized the power of Providence. With his strength after reaching the quasi-saint realm, he could contend with the Grand Supreme, and the battle was a draw. However, his cultivation was much higher than Lin Tian's. He was sure that Lin Tian could not sustain the power of Providence for too long. This was because cultivation determined everything. When Lin Tian's divine power was insufficient, the Providence could no longer be mobilized. At that time, it would be the time for him to suppress and kill Lin Tian. "It's enough to last until I kill you," Lin Tianling replied indifferently. As his words fell, an incomparably primitive aura interweaved outside his body. A strange great world appeared behind him. Nothing could be seen in the great world, only hazy radiance. It was turbid, but the aura was vast and intimidating. As this great world appeared, the Grand Supreme's expression changed. A true great world that was just formed. You opened up a true. He was shocked, and then suddenly thought of something. It's that world seed. The world seed has been transformed into a true great world by you. Behind Lin Tian, the great world was hazy and interweaved with primitive aura. It was vast and unparalleled, rippling. Sacred domain, coupled with this pair of eyes that can mobilize providence, no one can save you today if the saints don't appear. He looked at the Grand Supreme with a cold gaze. The sacred domain was the great world evolved from the world seed. As his words fell, he moved again. The sacred domain and the power of providence merged, shaking all directions. Bam! With a muffled sound, the Grand Supreme was directly sent flying. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood, and the holy light outside his body immediately became incomparably chaotic, as if it would dissipate at any time. However, the Grand Supreme who had reached the quasi-saint realm naturally couldn't be destroyed just like that. Damn it! He looked at Lin Tian in shock and anger. This ancient existence who had just reached the quasi-saint realm chose to escape again. With the sacred domain and providence, at this time, with his strength that had just entered the quasi-saint realm, it was impossible for him to block it. He clearly knew this at this time. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was endless away. You can't escape! Lin Tian's voice was cold. Using the yin-yang steps, he caught up with the Grand Supreme in one step and appeared directly behind him. He didn't do anything, but just glanced over. The providence of heaven and earth swirled and surged, cooperating with the various primitive powers of the sacred domain. They attacked the Grand Supreme from both sides. The Grand Supreme was shocked and quickly formed a seal. Holy light rolled, transforming into a saint wave to meet the attack. He roared in shock and anger. Break! Vigorous saint power rolled, mightily meeting Lin Tian's providence, and the power of the sacred domain. However, this couldn't be blocked at all. He was immediately crushed to pieces. Then, the Grand Supreme was directly hit by the combined power of providence and the sacred domain, and immediately exploded into pieces. Pieces of flesh and broken bones floated all over the void. At the same time, Lin Tian's body trembled slightly. Blood overflowed from his eyes and flowed down along his cheeks. With his cultivation of the divine emperor realm, it was obviously difficult to support these eyes. At this time, he had reached his limit. I must kill you today! His voice was cold. Even though his body had reached its limit at this time, he couldn't give up the battle. He must kill the Grand Supreme. Looking at the Grand Supreme, he didn't care about the blood flowing from his eyes. He took a step forward, and the 9 black moons in his eyes spun at an even more astonishing speed. Once again, they evolved into a long river of providence, completely sealing all sides of heaven and earth. Moreover, he also activated the sacred domain. Together with the power of providence, it pressed down on the Grand Supreme's divine soul, which had yet to reform a physical body. Before the Grand Supreme had the time to condense his physical body, he was drowned by the river of destiny and the saint domain. He immediately became even more miserable. His divine soul was bombarded until cracks appeared on it. It was like a fragile broken ceramic that could collapse at any time. Damn it, one day, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Chapter 1965. The world tunnel was horizontal, and silver light interweaved inside as astonishing divine aura spread out. Lin Tian immediately recognized where this world tunnel led to. He had seen such a world tunnel in the Dafan divine soil. This was the path to the celestial void realm. Grand Supreme was at the quasi-saint realm, and he had torn open the path to the celestial void realm. Clearly, he wanted to enter the celestial void realm from this place and temporarily avoid this battle. Don't even think about it. His voice was cold, and the 9 black moons in his eyes vibrated. Destiny rolled and surged toward the world tunnel at once. The majestic Destiny surged, unstoppable and unbreakable. With a swoosh, it shattered the world tunnel. Grand Supreme trembled, shocked and furious. He turned and fled. He didn't expect Lin Tian to mobilize Destiny like this and directly destroy the path to the celestial void realm that he had torn open. Lin Tian's eyes were bleeding, and his vision was a little blurry, but he didn't care at all. He raised his leg and chased after Grand Supreme. He was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he caught up with Grand Supreme again. Destiny filled the sky and annihilated everything. At the same time, he activated his Saint Realm and moved it together with the Destiny, sealing off all of Grand Supreme's escape routes. With a poof, Grand Supreme was crushed again, and blood stained the sky. However, since he had already stepped into the quasi-Saint Realm, this ancient existence was naturally very strong. His spirit was immortal, and he once again reformed his physical body and flew into the distance. However, in the next moment, he crashed into a pure white barrier and was shocked back. At this time, Lin Tian completely sealed off the surroundings with Destiny and Saint Realm, forcibly creating a sealed Saint Realm battlefield. "Damn it! I'll fight you to the death!" Grand Supreme roared, and surging holy flames appeared all over his body. He mobilized all of his saint power to use his world-burning Grand Supreme. For a moment, his saint power surged, and his aura was terrifying. Lin Tian's eyes were bleeding, and there was also blood at the corner of his mouth. At this time, he continued to bear the divine eye in a state that exceeded his limit and mobilized Destiny. For him, there would naturally be a great backlash, and his internal organs would be torn apart at this time. However, his expression didn't change at all. It was cold, and wherever his gaze passed, Destiny surged violently. Hong Long Long, the two of them engaged in the final clash of the pinnacle. Holy light, Destiny, and Saint Domain swept out, collapsing everything. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere as the Taishang was crushed into pieces. All that was left was a broken spiritual soul. His aura was extremely weak as he fled in anger. At this time, not only was Lin Tian bleeding from the corners of his eyes and mouth, but his body was also covered in cracks. The pressure of forcefully bearing the fate of the divine eye was too great, and the backlash was not light. "I told you, you will die today!" he said coldly as he watched Taishang flee. The next moment, a vast river of fate appeared, surrounding and isolating the Grand Supreme's divine soul. At the same time, the holy domain descended as well. The light within was hazy, nothing inside, but it was extremely terrifying. The Grand Supreme was even more furious. He roared madly and activated all of his power. However, at this time, he was too weak to resist the power of Destiny and Saint Domain that Lin Tian summoned. With a rumble, the Fate and Saint Domain pressed down together, and the world around them trembled, instantly crushing all of the Grand Supreme's resistance. "Break for me!" The Grand Supreme roared and activated an even stronger power to resist, attacking the Fate and Saint Domain. However, it was still useless. The Fate and Saint Domain that Lin Tian activated at this time were much stronger than before. This was a fatal blow. No! In the end, the Grand Supreme was in despair. After letting out an unwilling roar, his divine soul was crushed into pieces. Just like that, his body and soul were destroyed. At the same time, Lin Tian trembled violently, and more blood gushed out of his mouth. The Saint Domain returned to his body, and the power of Destiny dissipated. His eyes returned to normal, and his entire body was in indescribable pain. There was blood in his mouth, and he panted slightly. His body kept shaking as if he would fall from the void at any time. However, even so, he still grinned. The Grand Supreme was killed by him. Back then, he had plotted against Wu Yi. Now, he had vented his anger. At this moment, a beam of holy light suddenly arrived, and it was so fast that it enveloped him in an instant. Lin Tian's expression changed, but in the next moment, he was moved again because the holy light that surged over was not aggressive. Instead, it was healing his injuries. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the holy light. It was the Xianhuang Valley. Immediately, he paused and directly flew into the air. It didn't take long for him to arrive at the Xianhuang Valley. When he arrived at the Xianhuang Valley, Xianhuang was on a Xianhuang pool. "Thank you, Senior." He came in front of Xianhuang and bowed to the other party. The other party's holy light was so amazing that it healed his injuries caused by the backlash of the fate in an instant. Xianhuang shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to worry about it. Then, he looked at him and said, "Those eyes are too much of a burden for you now. If it is not necessary, don't use them at will before you reach the sovereign realm. If you use them too much, you may destroy yourself." Lin Tian nodded. He felt the same way. He had just used those eyes not long ago, and he had already reached his limit. Then, he forced himself to hold on. Although he had killed the Grand Supreme in the end, he had also suffered a heavy backlash. He felt that if he continued to forcibly support the eyes to mobilize the providence, he would die in at most a quarter of an hour. Thinking of this, he paused and said with a smile, "In fact, even if I wanted to use them by force, I can't now. It seems that I can't open them again, at least not now." Just now, he tried to open those divine eyes again, but he didn't feel anything at all. He couldn't do it. When your cultivation reaches a certain level, or when you encounter some special stimulation, you will naturally be able to summon them again. They are sleeping in your blood. Although it was the first time that Xianhuang had seen those eyes and didn't know what they were, he was still powerful and had lived for a very long time. He was knowledgeable and could see many things. Lin Tian nodded and then asked, "Senior's injuries, are they better?" He originally wanted to ask if Xuanhuang's injuries had gotten better with the help of the little Taichu's blood essence. But before he could finish, he stopped and looked at the sky. At this time, he vaguely felt several majestic saint auras. These saint auras were very shocking. Most importantly, he was very familiar with the aura mixed in these saint auras. At the same time, next to him, Xianhuang raised his head and looked at the sky with deep eyes. Chapter 1966. A surging sacred might came from beyond the world. It was vast and powerful, causing Lin Tian and Mysterious Yellow to feel it. Mysterious Yellow looked outside the mysterious ancient great world. His eyes were deep before landing on Lin Tian. "You seem to have grasped all the techniques of those 9 from Fengshen." "Wu, yes. Under a coincidence, I have obtained all of them and cultivated them." Lin Tian did not hide it. Mysterious Yellow's gaze landed on him. His eyes became deeper like 2 black holes that could devour everything. "No familiar aura. It doesn't seem like it." Eventually, he muttered to himself with slight disappointment. After that, he looked at Lin Tian and said, "The techniques of those 9 were created in the Human King Valley in the past. Even though they were only early God Emperors at that time, the grade of the techniques they created is also at the God Emperor level. But the level of exquisiteness is not any weaker than the ruler-level ancient scriptures. Especially the technique of that junior Fengshen. It is the most extraordinary and not any weaker than the transcending heaven-level ancient scriptures. You should comprehend it well." Lin Tian was moved. Even though he knew that the techniques of those 9 were frightening, he did not expect this living fossil in front of him would give such a high evaluation. Especially the 4 symbols seal. It was not any weaker than the transcending heaven ancient scripture? "Senior seems to be very familiar with them?" he asked after pausing for a moment. "You can say so." Mysterious Yellow did not hide it, saying, "That time after challenging the Human King, I stayed in the Human King Valley for a period." Lin Tian was startled once again. This person in front of him had challenged the Human King before? Then, the result? He could not help but ask. "I was defeated after a few dozen breaths of time." Mysterious Yellow's expression was calm. He did not feel embarrassed when mentioning his defeat, saying, "In fact, if he was serious, I would not have been able to withstand a single move. But he did not want me to lose too badly." Lin Tian could not help but tremble. This person in front of him was absolutely a super ruthless trash. He was in existence in the most ancient myths and legends. But when he used his full strength, he could not withstand a single move from a human king. This made him, who had heard many legends about human kings, feel a chill down his spine. Is that person really that strong? His eyes flickered. You weren't born in that era. You don't know what the two words human kings mean. They could crush the heavens. Xianhuang sighed. Even though Lin Tian already knew that the human king was terrifying, his heart still trembled when he heard Xianhuang's words. Rumble. Outside the mysterious ancient great world, the saint's aura was even more shocking. With Lin Tian's level of cultivation, he shouldn't have been able to sense the saintly might outside Xuangu macro world. The reason why he could sense it now was because he was in Xianhuang Valley. There was the 10-directional sacred defying formation set up by Xianhuang Valley. When he was in the 10-directional sacred defying formation, the range of his divine thought was limitless, and he could sense what was happening outside. Senior, those 9 seniors, as well as Senior Nameless, why did they fight with Disher Tian and the others? He asked Xianhuang. He had always been curious about this. Xianhuang's gaze was somewhat profound. Sakura and those 6 people are merely a few dogs raised in the lower bound. Because the dog master wanted to get rid of the human king's bloodline, the few dogs eagerly wanted to contribute and gain merit. They wanted to show off themselves by killing the disciples of King of Killers and Nameless. And Feng Shen Wuming and the others are not pushovers, they also want to get rid of those dogs. There's one more thing, it's related to the human king's youngest disciple. Speaking of the human king's youngest disciple, this living fossil that had lived for countless years, its deep eyes became somewhat complicated. It couldn't help but sigh. That little guy. As it spoke, its gaze fell on Lin Tian again. Its eyes became even more profound, but in the end, it shook its head. Doesn't look like him. Rumble. Saint's aura surged, vast and mighty outside the mysterious ancient great world. It became even more shocking, and other saintly auras appeared. Lin Tian had just learned the reason why Fengshen Tianzuan and the others were fighting with Sakura and the others. At this time, he felt several other saintly auras, and couldn't help but be moved. These saintly auras also had familiar auras. They were Sakura, Evil Ancestor, King of Chaos, and Saint King Lun Zhuan. These 4 people had stepped into the quasi-saint realm at this time. It doesn't change anything. Although Fengshen and the others haven't lived as long as those puppies, their aptitude is not something those puppies can compare with. In this generation, since they have entered the saint realm, the victory is already set. Xianhuang looked at the sky without any change in expression. Lin Tian was here, using the all-side sacred defying formation that Xianhuang had set up here to sense the battle outside the mysterious ancient great world. His eyes were very bright, but he frowned from time to time, because he could only sense the auras, but couldn't see anything. Xianhuang glanced at him and naturally knew why he was frowning. After a pause, he performed a super-divine ability with a heaven-defying method. Using the Xianhuang Qi in the Xianhuang Valley as a mirror, he showed the fierce battle between Fengshen Tianzuan and the others and King of Chaos and the others. Lin Tian was immediately moved. The person in front of him was really powerful, and could show the battle scene outside in front of him. Then, he sincerely thanked Xianhuang, because he naturally understood that the person in front of him showed the battle scene for him. On this day, he stayed here and watched the fierce battle between Fengshen Tianzuan and the others and Sakura through the scene shown by Xianhuang in the mysterious ancient great world. The divine picture of 4 divisions was unrestrained, and endless dragon patterns were intertwined. The dense formation light was everywhere, and it was terrifying. The battle lasted for 12 hours, and the result was as Xianhuang said. Fengshen Tianzuan and the others had entered the Saint Realm, a total of 10 people. Even though Sakura and the others had also entered the Saint Realm, they were no match for them. In the end, they were all killed. Sakura, Evil Ancestor, Saint King Lun Zhuan, and King of Chaos were killed, and Taishang and Yama are all dead. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Yama was killed by Wu Yi, and Taishang was obliterated by him. Sakura and evil ancestor were killed by Fengxing Tianzuan and the others. At this point, under the heaven world of nothingness, the leaders of the 6 legendary clans were all wiped out, and no one was left. Moreover, some of the higher-ups of the 6 clans were not able to survive, and those above the God Emperor realm were all killed. After watching this battle from afar, Lin Ming became even more aware of just how powerful Empyrean Divine Seal and the others were. Their use of all sorts of precious techniques had reached perfection, exquisite to the extreme. This allowed Lin Ming to have a much clearer understanding of the ancient scriptures he cultivated. Xian Huang raised his hand, causing the scene of the battle to disappear. After that, he looked at Lin Tian and said, "If you open those eyes of yours, then even with your current cultivation, you would be able to suppress any one of those little fellows from Fengshan." He looked at Lin Tian and gave Lin Tian the highest evaluation, saying, "Cultivate diligently, and you are qualified to approach the human king." Chapter 1967. Hearing Xian Huang's words, Lin Tian's expression changed. The first was Xian Huang's evaluation of him. He didn't expect that this living fossil would have such a high degree of recognition for him. He actually said that he had the qualifications to approach the human king. Human king? Who was that? That was a real legend in the world. Apart from that, what was more important was the last sentence Xian Huang said. Will there be a world-ending war in the future? He couldn't help but ask. The world-ending war was only 5 words, but it was enough to make anyone's heart tremble. The world-ending war would definitely involve the entire world, and billions of creatures would be greatly affected. Xian Huang nodded and didn't say too much, but there was a cold light in its eyes from time to time, and sometimes it became very deep. In short, you have to cultivate diligently. It looked very serious to Lin Tian Dao. Junior understands. Lin Tian nodded. He stayed in the Xianhuang Valley for 7 days to consult with the Xianhuang Valley about many things before he left. After leaving the Xianhuang Valley, he returned to the Immortal Court from the 10 Directions Ancient Star. Boy, where have you been these days? What have you done? Also, what's wrong with your eyes? Open them again and take a look. As soon as he returned to the Immortal Court, the white tiger rushed over and kept asking him all kinds of questions, but the most important ones were those eyes. 7 days ago, that pair of eyes had given them too much of an impact. Even the Violet Fairy looked at Lin Tian. Although she had seen Lin Tian use those eyes in the Fei clan before, she didn't know what they were. Later, she didn't ask much about it. Now that she saw those eyes again, she was naturally more curious. Dad, what kind of eye technique is that? Did you cultivate an eye technique other than the Delusion Breaker Divine Eyes? It's so powerful! Ruoxian's eyes lit up. At this time, she jumped to Lin Tian's side. Jiyu, Baiqiu, and the others were also here. They all looked at him at this time. Lin Tian smiled and then spread out his hands. I don't know. He didn't hide anything. He really didn't know anything about that pair of eyes. You don't even know? The white tiger was surprised. I don't know. Lin Tian shook his head. This somewhat surprised everyone. Then, Father, where have you been for the past 7 days? What are you doing? Ruoxian Lin asked. Lin Tian glanced at the quiet Wu Yi and said with a smile, I went to kill a bad guy who used to attack your mother. Eh? Who is it? Ruoxian Lin's eyes widened. In the Heaven of Void realm, there was still someone who dared to sneak attack her mother? Did he eat some heavenly gallbladder? Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu were moved. You went to kill the Grand Elder? Wishing Crocodile was surprised. It naturally knew who Lin Tian mentioned who used to sneak attack Wu Yi. It was the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder was the existence at the end of the Emperor God realm. Lin Tian had just reached the middle stage of the Emperor God realm. How could he kill the Grand Elder? The Grand Elder was dead? Wu Yi stood quietly at the side. She also knew who Lin Tian was talking about. A faint light flashed across her eyes. I killed him! Lin Tian nodded. Oh, that pair of eyes is quite powerful. he briefly described the process of killing the Grand Elder. Then, he also told them about the annihilation of Sakura and the others. For a moment, everyone was shocked again. You, with the cultivation of the middle stage of the Emperor God realm, you killed the Grand Elder who had reached the quasi-saint realm? So monstrous? He's comparable to Princess Wui. There were two big realms between the middle stage of the Emperor God realm and the quasi-saint realm. Lin Tian actually killed the Grand Elder who had reached the quasi-saint realm with a gap of two big realms. This really shocked everyone and made them tremble. As expected of father, you're so powerful! Ruoxian Lin hugged Lin Tian's arm happily. After all, which daughter didn't want her father to be powerful? Only Wui remained calm and didn't show any surprise. Then, Wishing Crocodile and the others were shocked by another thing. Sakura, King of Chaos, and those people are all dead? Feng Xingtianzuan and the other 9 people have all reached the quasi-saint realm? Sakura, King of Chaos, and the others could be said to be the absolute big shots in the Void Realm. They had lived for countless years and forced Feng Xingtianzuan and the others to reincarnate. But now, they were all killed by Feng Xingtianzuan and the others. This was a very shocking thing. Of course, this was also a good thing for them. After all, King of Chaos and the others were also their enemies. Time passed quickly. This day, in the blink of an eye, it was night. Lin Tian told them many things. Then, he went to the Immortal Emperor Divine Pagoda in the Immortal Court to cultivate in seclusion. He had just made the world seed evolve into a real macro world. His cultivation had reached the middle stage of the Emperor God realm. He needed to consolidate and stabilize his Tao foundation. He spent about half a month in seclusion. After half a month, he walked out of the Immortal Emperor Pagoda. His essence, chi, and spirit were completely stabilized. Moreover, in this half a month, he more or less understood the saint realm that was formed by the world seed. If I want it to grow, it needs pure and vigorous spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The more vigorous and pure it is, the faster it will grow. He muttered to himself. After muttering to himself, he looked up at the sky. There was naturally a lot of pure and vigorous spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the void realm. Going there could help the saint realm grow very quickly. I originally planned to go there. Now I have to go. A light flashed in his eyes. Then, he walked into the depths of the Immortal Court. He had already decided to go to the celestial void realm. However, he was not in a hurry. Before he went to the celestial void realm, he had to spend enough time with Wui, Jiyu, and the others. At the same time, he had to take some time to seriously manage the forces of the celestial court. After that, time passed quickly. He took time to spend with his family, and took Ruoxian to travel the entire starry sky. In addition, he called Bai Ziki and the others to personally handle the affairs of the Immortal Court. He spread the fire seed of the Immortal Court to various parts of the starry sky and established branches of the Immortal Court in various places. He even spread it to the Immortal region. In just a few years, it became the first inheritance in the Immortal region. The Immortal Court! It is said that an ancient god emperor went to the Immortal region's Immortal Court a year ago. Someone saw that he was very cold when he entered. He was as high and mighty as a god. It was as if he wanted to examine this new inheritance that was rising very quickly. However, when he came out, he was wiping his cold sweat. There was such a thing? It's absolutely true. This, terrifying. This Immortal Court, could there be someone who surpassed the God Emperor realm? In every corner of the Immortal region, many cultivators in many great worlds were discussing the Immortal Court. Many of them were fearful. Lin Tian wandered the various realms in the starry sky. He heard these cultivators talking about the Immortal Court. However, he did not care. He just smiled. Chapter 1968. Roaming the various worlds in the starry sky, Lin Tian, Bai Ziki and the others strengthened the Immortal Court again and again in a short period of time. The cultivators who joined the Immortal Court all had their battle prowess increased by at least 10 times in a short period of time. This was because Lin Tian didn't set any harsh conditions for the disciples of the Immortal Court to cultivate ancient scriptures. As long as they joined the Immortal Court, they could cultivate saint-level ancient scriptures. Saint-level ancient scriptures were no joke. It wasn't a dream for ordinary cultivators to increase their battle prowess by 10 times in a short period of time. Even God Emperor level experts would be jealous of saint-level ancient scriptures. Of course, because every disciple of the Immortal Court could cultivate saint-level ancient scriptures without any restrictions, the Immortal Court's selection of disciples was naturally very strict. The requirements for temperament and moral character were very strict. Every time a new disciple was selected, there would be God King level experts who would use various methods to test the character of the new disciple. To a certain extent, this was actually a bit unusual. Because since ancient times, the cultivation world only valued aptitude. The assessment of sex often only looked at cultivation aptitude and talent. If one's cultivation aptitude and talent were good, even if one's character was insidious, some sects often didn't care, because in the cultivation world, strength was everything. However, when Lin Tian established the Immortal Court, his idea was completely different from the many sects in the cultivation world. It didn't matter if one's cultivation aptitude was weak. As long as one was willing to work hard, one would definitely become stronger in the future. Through hard work, it wasn't impossible for an ordinary mortal physique to surpass a king physique in the future. This was completely achievable. However, if one's character was bad, no matter how heaven-defying one's aptitude was, he wouldn't care. Such people might betray their sect one day, just like Tuo Yili and Gu Jianchen of the Third Heaven's Feather Dao sect. Although their talent was amazing, their character was bad. One deceived his master, the other betrayed his sect and joined the enemy. He wandered around the starry sky and many great worlds, strengthening the Immortal Court. During this process, he also took the time to visit Jiang Luoluo and Shui Shui and some other old friends, and gave them extraordinary treasures. Time flew, and several months passed. On this day, he stepped into the starry sky alone and arrived at the Myriad Domain's imperial planet. In an ordinary and familiar small mountain, he found a snow-white divine wolf. "I am the master of the Immortal Court. I invite you to join me and become my protector. In the future, you will only be under my command in the Immortal Court. Are you willing?" he said to the snow wolf. In the past, the witch who saved him said that she wanted to see the scenery when the 1,000 illusion orchid bloomed. This snow wolf had silently guarded the orchid for hundreds of thousands of years, waiting for it to bloom. For the sake of saying that, he had sacrificed his life and tried his best to bring the mature orchid flower to the witch tomb. The witch had had the flower blossomed. In fact, the witch had already passed away at that time, and she could not see it. But even so, the snow wolf still did that back then. He burned his origin and risked his life to do that. This matter touched him and moved him. In his opinion, this kind of affection was of supreme value. He wanted the snow wolf to become his protector. The snow wolf was bathed in divine radiance and was in the true immortal realm. He looked at Lin Tian, then at the small village at the foot of the mountain and nodded. Lin Tian had done him a great favor, so he had no reason to refuse Lin Tian's invitation. "I will inform the members of the Immortal Court on this ancient planet to secretly watch over the small village here. After that, you can come back here at any time." Lin Tian said to the snow wolf. "Let's go to the Immortal Realm." He had learned from Xian Huang that there would be a world-destroying war in the future. Before he went to the Celestial Void Realm, he began to make some simple preparations for the future. He needed to continuously strengthen his strength to face that war. Time passed, 1 year after another. In the blink of an eye, 7 years had passed. During these 7 years, the Immortal Court's branches spread throughout the starry sky and many worlds under the Celestial Void Realm. It had become the #1 inheritance under the Celestial Void Realm. Even the top clans of the 10,000 clans were afraid of it. Because the news that an ancient divine emperor had been scared away by Wu Yi when he came to the Immortal Court to provoke the Immortal Court was leaked out, causing everyone to tremble. To be able to scare away a divine emperor instead of forcing him to retreat, how terrifying was his strength! In the eyes of many experts, he had definitely surpassed the divine emperor level. In fact, although Wu Yi's cultivation was still at the half-step divine emperor realm, his strength had indeed surpassed the divine emperor level. Even quasi-sages were far from comparable and could be easily suppressed. In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. The immortal court's strength had become even more tyrannical. "Father, Mother wants you to listen to a song." On this day, Ruoxian came to find Lin Tian. Lin Tianyi was stunned. What? Wu Yi wanted him to listen to a song? He felt a little strange, but he didn't ask much. He followed his precious daughter and soon arrived at the ethereal mountain. The ethereal mountain was as beautiful as always. Immortal plants were tall and straight, and divine flowers and strange plants were everywhere. At the back of the mountain, a spiritual waterfall hung in the air, bringing with it a 7-colored divine rainbow. It was very beautiful. Wu Yi was like a person who walked out of a painting. She was so beautiful that it felt unreal. The 10 directions divine flowers seemed to be just a foil to her. She was very quiet and didn't say anything. A gentle divine sense floated out from her sea of consciousness and quickly entered Lin Tian's sea of consciousness. As the light of the treasure entered his sea of consciousness, Lin Tian was immediately moved. The soul consciousness that Wu Yi had given him was a precious technique. As soon as it entered his sea of consciousness, it immediately fused with him and operated on its own. It made his origin glow, and in just a blink of an eye, his spirit, soul, and other aspects of his strength had increased by 10 times. At this moment, he could clearly feel his essence trembling. This precious technique seemed to have been created for him. Wu Yi, this is... He was moved. Wu Yi was very calm. Thousand snow floated out of her body, bringing with it a trace of mysterious light. She was wearing a pure white silk dress. She played the thousand snow gently. The melodious sound of the flute floated out immediately, as if it came from the long river of time and space. It was pleasant to the ear, causing all Daos to tremble. It was like the sacred sound of the Tao. Lin Tianji felt another tremor. The precious technique in his body and his essence were resonating with the sound of the flute. His essence, energy, and spirit quickly multiplied. In the blink of an eye, his essence, energy, and other aspects of his strength were enhanced again. In the end, he was 100 times stronger. He was shocked. In just a short moment, under the influence of the mysterious precious technique in his body and Wu Yi's flute sound, he felt that he, who was only at the middle stage divine emperor realm, could fight against an emperor god even without the divine eyes and the sacred domain formed by the world seed. He could even kill them. The sound of the flute was faint. Together with the vibration of the precious technique in his body, it caused his life essence to shine. After about 10 breaths, Wu Yi stopped playing the flute. The sound of the flute directly disappeared. At the same time, Lin Tian's enhanced battle strength began to decrease rapidly. When the precious technique in his body also stopped, his strength in all aspects quickly returned to normal. P.S. The annual New Year's Eve is just a few days away. On New Year's Eve, the dragon will give out hundreds of cash red packets on the official WeChat account to thank brothers and sisters for their continuous support. I also want to take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy new year. Everyone can add the dragon's official WeChat account. The dragon will inform you in advance on the official WeChat account. Chapter 1969. Wu Yi, what on earth is this? Lin Tian was a little stunned. The paragon skill Wu Yi had injected into his sea of consciousness could instantly increase his battle strength by 10 times. Then, when Wu Yi played the flute, the sound of the flute and the paragon skill overlapped rapidly, increasing his strength in all aspects by 100 times. This shocked him. 100 times, increasing his strength by 100 times. What kind of thought was this? Although Wu Yi's flute had also increased his battle strength by 10 times when he was crossing the Chaos Emperor tribulation, that was different from now. After all, he was still very weak at that time. But now, he was already at the godly emperor realm. At this level, Wu could still increase his strength by 100 times. How terrifying was that? Moreover, the most important thing was that he discovered that regardless of whether it was when he operated the precious technique Wu passed on to him, or when Wu played the flute, his life source was always shaking, producing precious splendor that only he could see. "How do you feel?" Wu said with a gentle voice. "Of course, very good." Lin Tian immediately nodded. Then, he asked, "What is going on?" Then, he learned that the paragon skill Wu had injected into his sea of consciousness was created in conjunction with his reincarnation origin. When it was used, it could increase his battle strength by 10 times. The flute music that followed was also created in conjunction with his reincarnation origin. When combined with the paragon skill Wu had injected into his sea of consciousness and his reincarnation origin, it could increase his battle strength by another 10 times. Accumulated, it could increase his battle strength by 100 times. "You!" He looked at Wu and suddenly thought of something. "All these years you've been stuck at the half-step godly emperor realm. Was it to develop these 2 paragon skills? Crossing the heavenly tribulations is very difficult. Each one is more difficult than the last. But controlling your battle strength by 10 times will make it easier for you to cross the heavenly tribulations in the future. 100 times your battle strength will change many things in the future." Wu did not answer his question. He continued, "Your reincarnation origin has endless potential. If it is completely unleashed, it can destroy everything and protect everything." Her tone was as gentle as ever. She didn't answer Lin Tian's question directly, but Lin Tian could clearly feel that his guess was correct. All these years, Wu didn't choose to break through to a higher level. She was using the reincarnation origin that Lin Tian had infused into her body to deduce these 2 Taoist techniques. She was doing this to make it easier for him to deal with the heavenly tribulations in the future. "Thank you for your hard work." He stepped forward and grabbed Wu's hand. He didn't care at all when Wu mentioned how strong his reincarnation source was. With a wife like this, he really didn't know how to express his feelings. Even if he died immediately, it would be completely worth it. When Lin Tian held her hand, Wu didn't show any shyness. Instead, a light smile appeared on her beautiful face. "We are family." Lin Tian was moved in his heart, and then he smiled as well. "Forever and ever family." He held Wu's hand and said. Family was a simple word, but it contained too many things. It was no longer something that could be clearly described with words. On this day, he cultivated the paragon techniques that Wu had created in Ethereal Mountain. He slowly became more and more familiar with them. Later, he learned more. Because these 2 paragon techniques were created by Wu using the reincarnation origin that he had passed through, only he, who had the complete reincarnation origin, and Wu, who had the reincarnation origin that he had passed through, could use them. In comparison, these 2 paragon techniques were much more useful to him than to Wu. This was because these 2 paragon techniques were based on reincarnation origin. Wu didn't have a complete reincarnation origin like he did. At the same time, these 2 paragon techniques had certain restrictions. They couldn't be used on the same person at the same time. In other words, no matter if it was him or Wu, when they used the first paragon technique, they couldn't use the second sound technique at the same time. When they used the second sound technique, they couldn't use the first paragon technique at the same time. In order to stack the effects of these 2 paragon techniques on the same person, one of them could only use the first paragon technique, while the other used the second sound technique. Reincarnation Forging Spirit Technique, Reincarnation Calamity Crossing Song. Wu used more than 1,000 years to create these 2 paragon techniques, but he didn't name them. He left this matter to Lin Tian, and Lin Tian decided on the names of these 2 paragon techniques. Immediately after, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Wu merely borrowed the reincarnation source that he passed through, yet he was able to create these 2 supreme precious techniques. His aptitude was truly shocking to the extreme. The value of these 2 techniques was truly too great. Then, he thought of something else. He had already reached the Divine Emperor realm and had been practicing other people's techniques. Maybe it was time for him to create his own technique, a technique that was unique to him. After all, no matter how powerful other people's paragon techniques were, they were still others. If he wanted to surpass his predecessors and truly walk in the forest of the strongest in the world, he must create his own ancient technique. Don't worry for now. The 9 people's paragon techniques are very exquisite. You can cultivate for a while and comprehend your reincarnation origin at the same time. When you reach the Saint King realm and your saint power is refined, it'll be the best time to create your own ancient scripture. Wu Yi said to him. Lin Tian nodded and said, Then let's do that. When I reach the Saint King realm, I'll create my own paragon technique. Since Wu Yi said so, this was naturally the best choice. He believed in this without any doubt. For the next period of time, he stayed in the ethereal mountain and continued to practice the reincarnation forging spirit technique and the reincarnation tribulation crossing song. He became more and more proficient in the control of the 2 paragon techniques. After a month, he could already operate them perfectly. A month later, on the same day, strange phenomena appeared in the ethereal mountain one after another. Wu Yi no longer continued to stay at the half-step Divine Emperor realm and began to make breakthroughs. In this day, he advanced to higher levels again and finally stopped at the first heaven of the quasi-saint realm. The entire ethereal mountain was surrounded by gentle saint light. At the same time, the ethereal mountain seemed to have become a world of its own. It vaguely made people feel that it was full of the power of rules. Amazing, Lin Tian said with a smile. He had already thoroughly comprehended the reincarnation forging spirit technique and the reincarnation tribulation crossing song. Today, he was waiting here for Wu Yi to come out of seclusion. Wu Yi, dressed in white, was beautiful and charming. She smiled at him gently. Yeah. Little Taishu flew over and landed on Wu Yi's shoulder, rubbing against Wu Yi's cheek intimately. Mother is so strong. I guess even a Saint King is no match for him. Lin Ruoxian's eyes lit up and her face was filled with admiration. Jiyu, Baiqiu and the others were also here. They were all shocked by Wu Yi's current aura. It was really too strong. Wu Yi smiled and nodded at them one by one. Then, on the ethereal mountain, she brewed tea for everyone. The fragrance of the tea filled the air. This day passed quickly. The next day, Lin Tian took Wu Yi, Ruoxian Lin, Ji Yu and the others and left the ethereal mountain to travel around the starry sky. Chapter 1970. The starry sky was vast and filled with great stars. The stars were very different from some of the great worlds, but they looked very beautiful from the outside. Lin Tian, Wu Yi, and the others walked past many great stars and great worlds. They saw many celestial sceneries. Then, in the blink of an eye, another year passed. It's time to go. 1 year later, Lin Tian muttered to himself. During this year, he didn't do anything else. Every day, he accompanied Wu Yi and the others. On this day, he was ready to leave for the Void Realm. There would be a world-destroying war in the future. He had to become stronger in the shortest time possible so that he could have the power to protect his family and friends in the future. At the same time, an environment like the Heaven Realm was naturally the most suitable for him to grow in the Saint Realm. Moreover, the sword soul of the divine sword was still incomplete. He felt that there might be other fragments of the sword soul in the Void Realm. On this day, he told Wu Yi and the others about this matter. He was ready to leave on this day to find Xianwang. Safety first. Wu Yi spoke. Her words were very simple. Ji Yu and the others also spoke one after another. Their words were similar to Wu Yi's. They wouldn't go together. They would stay in the 10 directions celestial domain. Wu Yi would personally guide them to cultivate. After that, they would go to the special ancient tomb in the celestial domain again. With Wu Yi guiding them to cultivate, and that super ancient tomb, their cultivation would definitely not fall behind. I know. Lin Tian nodded. Daddy, we're going to leave soon. I don't know how long you'll be gone. There should be a hug of love here. Ruoxian said wittily. She pushed Wu Yi to the front. Then, she pushed Jiyu, Bai Qiu, and the others forward. Lin Tian blushed with shame. In the past year, he took Wu Yi and the others to Earth. His precious daughter learned many things on Earth and became more and more mischievous. He looked at Wu Yi, Jiyu, Shui Yi, and the others. He walked forward and hugged the girls one by one. Then, his gaze landed on Wu Yi. He said, "I'll leave this side to you." In truth, after leaving the 10 Directions Heaven domain, he was very reassured about the safety of this place. Wu Yi was now at the quasi-saint realm and controlled perfect order. Moreover, he had the reincarnation forging spirit technique. With the accumulation of strength in all aspects, it was very frightening. With Wu Yi around, even if a Saint Venerable came looking for trouble, he might not necessarily be able to gain any advantage over Wu Yi. Wu Yi didn't say anything and just nodded slightly. "Father, you have to think about your daughter more when you're outside. You have to do the most important thing. You have to be safe." Ruoxian jumped over and hugged Lin Tian's neck. Originally, she wanted to go to the celestial void realm with Lin Tianyi, but Wu Yi didn't let her. He wanted her to stay by his side and continue comprehending order. This was the most important thing for her right now. "Of course." Lin Tian smiled and rubbed Ruoxian's head dotingly. "Big brother, please hug me," Violet Fairy said with a smile and floated over. "Me too." Lin Shi also flashed over. "Big brother, what about me?" Violet Moon blinked her eyes. Lin Tian couldn't help but smile and hug them one by one. Then, he said goodbye to Wu Yi and the others again. Finally, the girls left. Whooshing Crocodile and Little Tai Chu naturally followed him. At the same time, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, White Tiger, Yang Qi, Black Dragon, and Snow Wolf were also with him. They were all going to the celestial void realm to become stronger there. The group moved very quickly and appeared in the starry sky in the blink of an eye. Then, Lin Tian tore open the Great World Rift and entered the mysterious ancient Great World. He directly came to the Xianhuang Valley. "Senior, I'm here." Lin Tian led the group into the valley and soon saw Xianhuang. He introduced Bai Ziki and the others to Xianhuang. "These are my companions. They will go to the celestial void realm with me. Is that okay?" Xianhuang nodded. Sending 3 people to the celestial void realm, or sending a group of people to the celestial void realm, made no difference to it. Moreover, it could see that Bai Ziki and the others were extraordinary. Each of them had the image of a dragon and a tiger, and their future achievements would not be low. Lin Tian now thanked it and then asked, "Senior, after I enter the celestial void realm, what do I need to do for you?" "Half of my divine soul resides in a secret place in the celestial void realm. You can open the Taoist formation there, and the other half of my divine soul will come down and merge with my body," Xianhuang said. It did not hide anything because Bai Ziki and the others were here. It believed in the little Tai Chu and Lin Tian, and naturally, it believed in Lin Tian's companions. As it spoke, it handed Lin Tianyi a piece of red jade. "Hold it. There are some Taoist patterns with killing intent there. They will not attack you." Lin Tian took the red jade and was a little moved. The one in front of him had separated half of his divine soul? Moreover, it seemed that he had sealed the other half of his divine soul in a secret place, and the Taoist patterns there needed to be opened from the outside to be released. "Senior, are you going through a special kind of divine soul cultivation?" he asked. Xianhuang nodded and did not try to hide it. "I'm just trying to improve my strength." As it spoke, its eyes were cold. "If not for this, how could those bastards hurt me so badly when my strength was only half of my peak?" This living fossil-level existence was bold and domineering. It did not care about the attitude of a peerless powerhouse. Anyone it did not like was a bastard in its mouth. "So that's how it is." Lin Tian nodded secretly in his heart. First, he understood why the legendary living fossil in front of him was injured so badly. Second, he understood why Xianhuang had been silent in the Xianhuang Valley for so long, and did not send anyone to the heaven realm to help him. It turned out that it was related to half of his divine soul. He really had to be cautious about this kind of thing. How could ordinary people believe it? Thank you for your trust, Senior. This junior will not disappoint you, he promised Xian Wang. Although the other party chose to trust him at first because of the little Tai Chu, it still trusted him in the end. Now, the other party directly handed over half of his divine soul to him. He must live up to the other party's trust. I believe in you. Xian Wang nodded and then raised its hand again. A talisman with endless divine patterns emerged, and it handed it to Lin Tian. The realm-crossing talisman. Even if you don't reach the sovereign realm, you can rely on it to avoid the rules of heaven and earth in the heaven realm and return to this world from the heaven realm. Chapter 1971. Lin Tian took the Transcendence Talisman from Xian Wang. His eyes shone brightly. With this Transcendence Talisman, he could enter this world from the celestial void realm at any time. He didn't have to worry about the powerful restrictions of the laws of heaven and earth. Thank you, Senior, he said to Xian Wang and carefully put away the Transcendence Talisman. Xian Wang nodded. The Xian Wang divine light flickered and instantly broke through the void, opening up a world tunnel. For a moment, rich divine energy intertwined in the tunnel. Light circled inside, giving people a strange feeling. Lin Tian's eyes shone. This wasn't the first time he felt such an aura. It came from the celestial void realm. This was the path to the celestial void realm. The path to the celestial realm? This is really... Whooshing Crocodile and White Tiger were excited. Beside them, Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, and the others' eyes shone brightly. To them, the celestial realm was a vast stage. It was also a new battlefield for them. They would go there to sharpen themselves and reach a higher level. Go. Be careful. Xian Wang looked at Lin Tian and said. Lin Tian nodded and bowed to Xian Wang. After entering the celestial realm, I will give you half of your soul as soon as possible. He could imagine that after the other half of this living fossil spirit returned, he would definitely be able to recover from his injuries even faster and return to his peak state. Furthermore, he might even become stronger than before. Then, he, Yang Qi, and the others stepped forward. They took one last look at the lower realm before stepping into it. With a whoosh, they were swallowed by the world tunnel in an instant. Then, the world tunnel's door disappeared. An eye technique that's not much weaker than a human king's. A saint domain formed from a world seed. How strong can you grow? Xian Wang whispered as he looked at the place where Lin Tian left. His eyes shone with anticipation. In the world tunnel, all kinds of lights surrounded it. It was magical and magical. Lin Tian, Bai Ziki, and the others were all very cautious. After an unknown amount of time had passed, the world tunnel trembled slightly. The power of space intertwined and shook the group out of the world tunnel. They once again landed on solid ground. As far as the eye could see, divine mountains and lofty peaks stretched out horizontally before their eyes. They didn't know how tall they were. In the distance, they could see surging celestial rivers that seemed to have existed since ancient times. Faint divine radiance interweaved on the surface of the water. Most importantly, the psionic energy in the air was too shocking. There was a natural divine aura floating in the air, causing their pores to open up involuntarily as they breathed in and exhaled the divine aura floating in the air. This is the celestial void world? Whooshing Crocodile trembled slightly. It can't be wrong. It's definitely him. The White Tiger's eyes shone with excitement. As for Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, and the others, their eyes glittered as they looked around. It's the celestial void realm. Lin Tian Andao. Such amazing divine mountains and lofty peaks, such surging celestial rivers, and the dense psionic energy and majestic divine aura in the air. Where else could it be other than the celestial void realm? Moreover, they had stepped into the celestial void world through the path that Xian Wang had torn open. Naturally, they would appear in the celestial void world. Roar! Roar! The celestial mountains and lofty peaks stretched out in all directions. The roars of beasts and birds could be heard from within, shaking the sky. Mixed with the demonic energy, even Lin Tian, who had reached the middle stage of the Divine Emperor realm, was shocked. The group stood there with a huge mountain behind them. They looked around, and dozens of breaths passed in the blink of an eye. We'll split up here. I'll go east. I'll go north. I'll go south. Lin Tian went to the mysterious land of Xianhuang and released half of its divine soul. Although there were many killing formations there, Lin Tian would not be in any danger with the divine jade given by Xianhuang. Bai Ziki and the others were not worried. At this time, they spoke one after another. Just like the first time they entered the starry sky, they split up to fight and sharpen themselves with their own strength. Of course, only Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, Snow Wolf, Yang Qi, and the Black Dragon chose to split up and fight. Little Taichu would definitely follow Lin Tian, and Wishing Crocodile would go with Lin Tian, just like before. Tiger Lord will also go with Lin Tian. We'll lie down and cultivate. The White Tiger laughed weakly. Lin Tian nodded. Looking at Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, Snow Wolf, Yang Qi, and the Black Dragon, he said, I don't know how long we'll stay in this world to cultivate. He looked back at the huge celestial mountain behind him and said, After this, every 10 years, we will gather in the celestial mountain behind us. Whether we want to continue staying in this world to cultivate and improve ourselves or return to our homeland in the lower realms, we will discuss it together at that time. 10 years was a long time for ordinary people, but for cultivators at their level, it was really short. Bai Ziki and Fanning Xiong heard this and nodded. Snow Wolf looked at Lin Tian, who had now turned into a middle-aged man, and said, I swear I won't go back until I become a ruler. After 10 years, you don't have to wait for me. He bowed to Lin Tian and said, Immortal Emperor, please be careful. Safety first. With the help of some Baodan that Lin Tian had given him from the ancient tomb in the Immortal region, he had reached the Immortal King realm. This time, he had taken the initiative to ask Lin Tian to go to the celestial world of nothingness. Right now, that witch from back then was no longer around. The little village that the witch had always been protecting now had members of the Immortal Court secretly protecting it. Right now, the greatest meaning of its life was to continue surviving as Lin Tian's protector. In order to not disgrace its status as a protector, it had to continue growing stronger and surpass itself. Okay. Lin Tian looked at Snow Wolf and said, I want to say the same thing as you. Safety first. On this day, he parted ways with Bai Ziki, Snow Wolf, and the others, and watched Bai Ziki and the others go in different directions. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths had passed. Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the others all disappeared from sight. Boy, where are we going now? The White Tiger asked. At this time, he shrunk his monster body and transformed into a pair of white tiger wings, and floated beside Lin Tian. Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu heard this and also looked at Lin Tian. They traveled with Lin Tian and had always regarded Lin Tian as their backbone. Let's go to the Xianhuang's secret place first and release half of Senior Xuanhuang's divine soul. Lin Tian now. Xianhuang had naturally told him the specific location of the Xianhuang secret place. Immediately, he followed the specific location given to him by the Xianhuang path and followed a fixed direction, heading northwest here. They were very fast. Before long, they had traveled far away, leaving hundreds of divine mountains behind them. Boom! At this moment, in a group of magnificent divine mountains far in front of them, an amazing beam of light soared into the sky, mixed with rich 7-colored divine brilliance, and dyed the sky with a layer of 7-colored luster. This is... Lin Tian stopped in his tracks and was immediately shocked. Chapter 1972. Divine radiance shot into the clouds, mixed with 7-colored divine light, causing Lin Tian's expression to change. At the same time, the Wishing Crocodile, the Little Taichu, and the White Tiger were also shocked. Boy, this... The Wishing Crocodile stared at Lin Tian. He was familiar with the divine light as he had seen it many times. It was the light that Lin Tianyi had been looking for. Lin Tian's eyes naturally shone brightly. At this moment, when the seven-colored light appeared, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness immediately trembled. Strands of the same seven-colored light spread out from the divine sword and spread throughout his sea of consciousness. There was no doubt that he had found a new sword soul fragment. He was surprised and happy at the same time. He did not expect to find a new sword soul fragment as soon as he entered the heaven of void world. He took a deep breath and said, "Let's go!" Originally, he had planned to go to the mysterious yellow secret land in the heaven of void world immediately, and release the half of the divine soul in the mysterious yellow secret land. However, he did not expect to find a new sword soul fragment here. Therefore, he decided to change his itinerary temporarily. He would get the sword soul fragment here first, and then go to the mysterious yellow secret land. He called out to the wishing crocodile, the little Taichu, and the white tiger. They were very fast and went straight to the place where the light pillar came from. After about 10 breaths, the man and the 3 beasts arrived at a group of mountains. As far as the eye could see, the mountain range appeared to be very grand. Every mountain was extremely tall, and it was difficult to see the peak when looking up. There were white clouds lingering around the top of the mountain, as if they were divine clouds, giving people a feeling of charm. Practically at the same time they arrived, the sound of rushing wind rang out from all around them. One figure after another charged over from different directions. The essence, chi, and spirit they exuded were extremely shocking. Even the weakest of them was a celestial god. Moreover, the 3 beasts saw dozens of godly emperors and more than a dozen half-step godly emperors. Most importantly, these divine emperors and half-step emperor gods were young men and women. They were not middle-aged or old. This is really... Wishing crocodile and white tiger were shocked. Divine emperors and half-step divine emperors were rarely seen in the lower realms, but there was a group of them here. Even Lin Tian couldn't help but be moved, but it was only for a moment, and he didn't care anymore. This was because this was the celestial void realm. In this great world, the spiritual power in the air was too dense. It was unknown how many times denser than the spiritual power in the air in the celestial domain. It was at least 10,000 times denser. Moreover, the air here naturally contained divine law Tao rhymes. Cultivating in such an environment was simply too high. Compared to cultivating in the lower realm, the improvement of one's cultivation was many times easier. Moreover, these youths were not the so-called youths of the ordinary cultivation world. Instead, they were measured according to the standard of the cultivation world of the immortal realms, all youths under the age of 1,000 years. Their actual ages, from the vague aura of time that they exuded, were all between 800 and 1,000 years old. Ignore them. Let's go to the place where the divine light is rising. Lin Tian now. He had seen the exact location of the 7-colored light pillar clearly before. At this moment, he called Wishing Crocodile, Little Taichu, and White Tiger, and directly rushed towards that location. At the same time, from all directions, more cultivators rushed over. The 7-colored divine light is unparalleled in the world. It's definitely from a supreme treasure. Let's go, we must get it. There are so many people here. How can it be so easy to get it? Even if we can't get that supreme treasure, there must be other extraordinary treasures nearby. We'll definitely get something. Oh, that's true. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. A group of people was discussing as they moved quickly towards the depths of the divine mountains. Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, Little Taichu, and White Tiger moved together. They were very fast and rushed into the center of the divine mountains in the blink of an eye. Roar! The beast's roar shook the sky. A 10-jang tall savage bear rushed out. Its eyes were blue with a hint of scarlet. It clawed at Lin Tian. As the bear clawed at Lin Tian, a hurricane swept up in this place. Many of the big trees nearby were smashed into pieces. The debris splashed everywhere. It's comparable to a peak divine king! White Tiger was shocked. It was shocked by the heavenly realm of nothingness again. Just a random divine mountain had such a level of ferocious beast. Lin Tian didn't care much. He was now at the middle stage of the Divine Emperor realm. A ferocious beast comparable to a peaked Divine King was nothing to him. He raised his hand and casually slapped the savage bear. With a bang, the savage bear was slapped dozens of jounds away. It fell to the ground and didn't get up again. After that, his footsteps didn't change much. He continued to move towards the place where the 7-colored light pillar had shot out. Soon, he led Wishing Crocodile, Little Taichu, and White Tiger. In a flash, they had crossed more than 1,000 jounds away. Whoosh! At this moment, there was a sound of something breaking through the air. A blood-red light came from behind. It carried a strong murderous aura. It was very fast. Lin Tian felt a wave of coldness heading straight for his head. It was extremely sharp, as if a sharp sword was stabbing over. He directly flipped his hand, and wisps of divine radiance appeared on his right hand, lashing out behind him. Bang! With a muffled sound, his palm collided with the blood-red light. The blood-red light was sent flying and crashed into a big tree. In an instant, the large wooden block crumbled, and the bloody light stabilized, revealing its form. It was actually a 2-inch-tall monkey with a single horn on its forehead. There were strands of strange patterns intertwined on the horn, and it was extremely bizarre. Squeak! The Blood Marquis stared at Lin Tian and made an extremely sharp sound. Its monkey face looked very ferocious. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. Although he had casually whipped out his palm, it was definitely not weak. It could have pulverized an ordinary godly emperor. However, this Blood Marquis was completely fine after taking that blow. Then, in the next moment, looking at this Blood Marquis, his expression changed again. This time, there was even a trace of surprise. Blood-red hair, a single horn. Psychic monkey? He suddenly recognized what kind of race this Blood Marquis was. He had read about it in an ancient book that had turned yellow. It was a kind of saint spirit that was born naturally from the world. According to the ancient book from the lower world, the psychic monkey's bloodline was very terrifying, especially the single horn on its forehead. It was rumored that it contained extremely terrifying divine power. It was born for destruction. Back then, a psychic monkey had appeared in a big world in the lower world. It had killed several emperor gods and caused a bloodbath. In the end, a dozen emperor gods had used up all their cultivation to kill it. Not long after that, the dozen emperor gods had also died because their cultivation had been used up. This psychic monkey had only appeared once in the lower world. It was said that no one had seen it after that. He had never thought that he would see the legendary Saint Spirit as soon as he entered the Heaven of Void realm. Monkey, what's wrong? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.